Chapter 341. Mo Qingqing returned to her room. After Luo He's advice failed, Mo Qingqing began to concoct pills again. The cauldron floated in the air, and the scorching heat of the flames didn't seep out at all. Concocting pills was different from forging weapons. Concocting pills did not require flames that were too strong. One only needed to have perfect control over the fire, and not a single mistake could be made. Forging weapons, on the other hand, required extremely strong flames because they needed to smelt the materials. This was especially so when it came to forging high-level divine weapons. The stronger the materials, the harder it was to melt. The most crucial part of forging divine weapons was the divine imprints. The most crucial part of alchemy was one's perception. Although it seemed simple, it was actually extremely difficult. Not only that, some people's perception was innate. Some people were born with extremely sensitive perception, and were proficient in alchemy. For example, Mo Qingqing's heart of 7 apertures. Concocting a medicinal pill required too many combinations of medicinal ingredients, and the dosage had to be incomparably accurate. Every time the ingredients were combined, the sequence and the composition had to be guaranteed to be flawless. Otherwise, it would result in the medicinal pill's grade being subpar. In fact, there were even times when a mistake was made, and a medicinal pill that was meant to save lives could turn into a deadly poison. Mo Qingqing's perception had always been within the cauldron, quietly waiting. For the sake of concocting this pill, she had failed many times. The current her was already a 4th-ranked alchemist, which meant that she could concoct 4th-ranked pills with a success rate of 20%. However, for the sake of concocting this 3rd-ranked pill, she had already failed 27 times. This was because the pill she wanted to concoct was a taboo for alchemists, the limit break pill. As the name implied, limit break pill was a pill created for the purpose of breaking through to the next level. In the cultivation of the martial Tao, one step at a time, one footprint at a time. This was the truth. Refining pills was also a kind of balance. The pills you refined could be used to strengthen the physique, improve the meridians, or even powerful pills that could change the cultivator's physique, or even resurrect the dead. However, the limit break pill was a pill that defied the logic of cultivation, breaking the equilibrium in the world. It would allow wuxiu to forcefully break through to the next level, and was known as a taboo for alchemists. It required the blood and sweat of an alchemist with a unique physique to concoct it. Even if the person who concocted it succeeded, their vitality would be severely damaged, and the failure rate was exceedingly high. Hence, although the effects of the limit break pill were heaven-defying, very few people would actually attempt to concoct it. If it weren't for the fact that Mo Qingqing had prepared a large number of pills to replenish her vitality, she would have long since lost all her vitality. After a long period of time, Mo Qingqing could feel the changes within the cauldron. A hint of redness flashed past her countenance. This time around, the smelting of the medicinal ingredients was exceptionally perfect. This time, we must succeed. Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes flashed with a resolute light. Instantly, a thin line of blood appeared on her wrist. Her right hand pressed against the position of her heart, and instantly, her heart's blood was forced out. Instantly, her countenance paled, and a drop of blood containing an immense amount of spiritual energy dripped down from her wrist, falling into the cauldron. Mo Qingqing's countenance was as pale as a sheet of paper. She retrieved a few medicinal pills and directly swallowed them, as a look of determination flashed in her eyes. She would definitely succeed, she definitely would. She was very clear on how strong Zhan Chen was. Although she believed in Qin Wentian, the disparity between the two of them was too great. He had put in so much effort, unceasingly making up for it. How could she remain unmoved? Zhan Chen, Qin Wentian, and Ouyang Guangsheng all stared at the black-robed figure, their eyes flickering with sharpness. The cultivation of this person wasn't very high, only at the 8th level of Yuanfu. However, the devilish might he exuded gave off a sense of terror. Who might you be? Zhan Chen coldly asked as he stared at the black-robed figure. Devil arts were already extremely rare, and not only that, they were forbidden arts. As long as they appeared, they would definitely be extremely terrifying. However, very few people dared to cultivate devil arts. Devil arts were tyrannical, and it was extremely easy for them to devour the user. It was one of the easiest cultivation arts to fail. Once there was the slightest mistake, it was very possible for the user to enter into chi deviation. The devil energy would devour the user, and in the best-case scenario, the user would lose their humanity and become a killing machine. In the worst-case scenario, the user would directly explode and die. Not only that, even if one succeeded in cultivating it, they would still have to go through a terrifying amount of pain. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to endure it. In order to obtain the power of the devil path, one had to endure its tyrannical nature. Hence, if one didn't have great determination and willpower, they would never choose to cultivate devil arts. Even if a devil art was placed in front of them, they would still hesitate. There was an ancient saying in Grand Xia, once one entered the devil path, there would be no regrets in this lifetime. This meaning was that for those who cultivated the devil path, there was no turning back. In the future, if they chose to cultivate the devil path, they could never regret it. If not, they would die without a burial ground. Devil cultivators, on the path to becoming stronger, had to endure pain that was 10 times or even 100 times greater than that of ordinary people. However, the power gained by devil cultivators would also surpass that of ordinary people. Hence, even though Zhan Chen's cultivation base was at the peak of the 9th level of Yuanfu, a hint of trepidation could be seen in the depths of his eyes. No one dared to underestimate the combat prowess of a forbidden devil cultivator. Now that this person had appeared in Ginkgo, there was no doubt that he would definitely contend for the heavenly fate rankings. It seemed like the ranking battle this time around would be extremely brutal. Scram! The voice of the black-robed figure was hoarse, it was impossible to tell if it was a man or a woman. His eyes were still fixed on Zhan Chen, and the coldness in his gaze was so cold that it could penetrate the hearts of those who saw it. It's so rare to meet a devil cultivator, how can I not fight? Zhan Chen's entire body shimmered with a golden light, as a terrifying sharpness flickered in his eyes. Although his opponent was a devil cultivator, he was already at the 9th level of Yuanfu, and he had already comprehended the gold element ancient art. His entire body was as tough as metal, there was no need to fear a battle. He wanted to see how strong this devil cultivator was. As the sound of his voice faded, Zhan Chen stepped out, advancing towards the black-robed figure. The devilish might exuding from the black-robed figure intensified, as a terrifying cold light flickered in her eyes. An extremely cold intent gushed forth, enveloping Zhan Chen, causing his countenance to stiffen. Devil arts are extremely tyrannical, and yet this person's devil art actually contains an extreme yin qi. What kind of cultivation art is this? Zhan Chen slashed out with his sword in the air, his sword light piercing through the air, incomparably sharp. The black-robed figure waved her palms, as a tyrannical devil imprint blasted out. With a thunderous boom, the sharp sword was annihilated together with the terrifying devil palm. Zhan Chen placed his finger in front of him, and in an instant, the sound of sword whistling filled the air. Golden rays of light shot out in all directions, as numerous terrifying ancient swords manifested. Zhan Chen pointed his finger forward, as 9 beams of sword light shot out simultaneously, exuding a terrifying might. At this moment, he was also probing how strong the black-robed figure was. The black-robed figure continued waving her palms, as a pitch-black great heavenly devil palm blasted out, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. After destroying the 9 swords, the black-robed figure stepped out, moving towards Zhan Chen. How tyrannical were devil cultivators? How could they passively endure attacks? This black-robed figure had a skinny frame, yet at this moment, when she unleashed her devil art, she exuded a terrifying might, akin to a devil king descending from the heavens. Another palm strike blasted out, as a surge of annihilation energy gushed forth, heading straight for Zhan Chen. At the same time, the yin qi corroded Zhan Chen's entire body, causing the space around Zhan Chen to be completely enveloped by it. Devil arts are indeed powerful, Ouyang Guangxin praised. Being able to fight against Zhang Chen with a cultivation base at the 8th level of Yuanfu, one could very well imagine how powerful this black-robed figure was. Qin Wentian lightly nodded his head. At this moment, he was filled with bewilderment as he asked, "This person appeared to help us obstruct Zhang Chen. Do you know him?" Ouyang Guangsheng lightly shook his head. "I don't know any devil cultivators." "What about you?" Qin Wentian pondered for a moment before shaking his head. It was impossible for him to be acquainted with devil cultivators. Zhang Chen's eyes turned golden as the aura he exuded grew increasingly terrifying. Qin Wentian and Ouyang Guangsheng only saw a layer of golden armor enveloping his body. Both of his hands folded into ancient seals, and in an instant, the keening of swords could be heard as golden rays of light cascaded downwards, enveloping his entire body. Numerous resplendent golden swords floated around him, as though wanting to punish the heavens and earth. Each and every one of those swords exuded a terrifying might. An expression of shock appeared on Qin Wentian's face. Was this the might of the gold element ancient scroll? Rumble. A towering demonic cloud appeared in the air, as the surrounding space turned dark. The spectators from afar gradually turned their gazes over, their hearts filled with terror. Who was it? Who was it that cultivated the forbidden devil art? In the hands of the black-robed figure, a terrifying devil king's spear appeared. Terrifying demonic clouds congregated on the tip of the spear, as a tyrannical devil might permeated the air. At the same time, the black-robed figure's body was clad in a layer of devilish armor, as a fearsome devilish glow circulated around him. Chaotic art of the heavenly devil. At this moment, a voice drifted over. In the air, a silhouette appeared, clad in robes as white as snow, exuding an icy aura. Her eyes were fixed on the black-robed figure, as shock could be seen flickering in her eyes. "Where did you learn this devil art from?" The black-robed figure glanced at the newcomer, as his gaze wavered. This newcomer actually recognized this devil art. This was indeed the chaotic art of the heavenly devil, one of the 9 ultimate arts of ancient Grand Xia. It was also the only devil art amongst the 9 ultimate arts. He had cultivated it under a stroke of good fortune, and even had a small accomplishment in it. Yun Mengyi. Qin Wentian stared at the silhouette. She actually recognized this devil art? Who was Yun Mengyi exactly? Let's deal with him first. Yun Mengyi's gaze landed on Zhang Chen, as a terrifying light flickered in her eyes. She clenched her fists, causing the heavens and earth to be covered in frost. Instantly, a bone-chilling aura enveloped Zhang Chen, causing him to feel as though his body was being sealed in ice. The black-robed figure didn't say anything, he too, dashed towards Zhang Chen. His devilish long spear erupted forth with a terrifying might, causing the entire space to tremble. Devil intent filled the skies as a fearsome devilish might swept towards Zhang Chen. If this strike landed, no one under the Heavenly Dipper realm would be able to retreat unscathed. Yun Mengyi's silhouette was as swift as the wind, as swift as lightning. With her mandate of wind at the perfection boundary of the first level, in terms of speed, there were few in Yuanfu who could compete with her. A terrifying sense of crisis descended, and a terrifying golden light flashed in Zhang Chen's eyes. A blinding light burst forth from his body, and a destructive heaven-punishing might burst forth. Countless golden punishment swords revolved around him, transforming into a resplendent screen of light. Pang! The tyrannical devil's spear slammed forth, as Yun Mengyi's fearsome fist light similarly shattered. Zhang Chen's body was flung through the air as he groaned in agony. His gaze swept over to the two of them, the killing intent in his eyes was incomparably intense. He didn't expect to encounter such a situation. Both of them were extremely powerful. The spectators in the distance were all shocked. There were even people who recognized Zhang Chen, causing their hearts to tremble. Both of them were at the peak of Yuanfu, and from the exchange of blows, they could already sense how terrifying the storm would be in store for the ranking battle this time around. Chapter 342. Zhang Chen's golden eyes swept over to Yun Mengyi and the black-robed figure. He knew that it was impossible for him to kill Qin Wentian today. The strength of these two were extraordinary, especially the black-robed figure who cultivated the chaotic art of the heavenly devil. Among the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia, this was the only devil path art, the chaotic art of the heavenly devil. Naturally, Zhan Chen had long heard of it. It was exceedingly difficult to cultivate this art, and the danger level was simply too high. Out of 10 people who cultivated this art, 9 out of 10 would die miserably from the backlash. Only one person could successfully cultivate this art, and if he succeeded, he would become a terrifying devil king. Who would have thought that he would witness it today? I, Zhan Chen, will remember the actions of the two of you. The ranking battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings is just around the corner. Zhan Chen will personally experience the strength of the two of you. As the sound of his voice faded, Zhan Chen stepped on his sword as he soared through the air. The black-robed figure, as well as Yun Mengyi and the rest, didn't pursue him. Zhan Chen's combat prowess wasn't inferior to theirs in the slightest. Even if they could defeat Zhan Chen, they wouldn't be able to kill him. Defeating and killing were two completely different concepts. Unless they had an overwhelming advantage in strength, they wouldn't be able to kill Zhan Chen on the spot. Clearly, they weren't strong enough to kill Zhan Chen on the spot. After the battle ended, Yun Mengyi's gaze landed on the black-robed figure as she coldly asked, "Who are you exactly? How did you obtain the chaotic art of the heavenly devil?" The black-robed man's expression flickered, but his voice was still hoarse as he coldly said, "It has nothing to do with you." As the sound of his voice faded, he turned and prepared to depart. However, he only saw Yun Mengyi stepping out, her movements as swift as the wind. With a wave of her hand, ice and snow descended, covering the entire space in a layer of frost. The black-robed man suddenly turned around and struck out with his demonic spear. The void trembled and the ice and snow shattered. Yun Mengyi's palms trembled. Instantly, the humming of swords filled the air, as though there was a symphony of swords. Boundless sword might converged, and at the instant Yun Mengyi stretched her hand out, sword light cascaded downwards from the heavens. Buzz! As the sword descended, the world was shocked. In that instant, the world lost its color. Currently, Qin Wentian had also seen many supreme swordplay techniques. However, when Yun Mengyi's swordplay was unleashed, he couldn't help but feel astonished. This sword technique was breathtaking. The black-robed man's expression was cold. Without any hesitation, the demonic spear stabbed out once more, piercing the opponent's heart. The black-robed man's eyes were as cold as ever, ignoring the sword attack. Yun Mengyi's countenance changed, she didn't expect the black-robed man to be so ruthless. If she continued to attack, both of them would die. Soaring through the air, Yun Mengyi slashed out with her sword again, borrowing the light of the heavens and earth to slash down from the 9 heavenly layers. This is the heavenly swordplay. Ouyang Guangxing's heart trembled. As a chosen of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, his talent could be said to be outstanding, and he had seen many things. However, in this short period of time it took for an incense stick to burn, everything that happened before his eyes caused his heart to tremble unceasingly. Zhan Chen's strength was within expectations. After all, he was ranked number 11 on the Heavenly Fate rankings, and that was even before he started cultivating the Heavenly Sovereign's cultivation technique. After that, a mysterious black-robed man appeared. He cultivated the chaotic heavenly devil art. After that, Yun Mengyi appeared. The sword art she used was actually the heavenly swordplay. This sword art was also one of the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia. And just like the chaotic art of the heavenly devil, it was also an ultimate art that had been lost to time. Even Ouyang Guangxing could sense that this trip to the ancient kingdom, as well as the ranking battle for the heavenly fate rankings, would bring about an unprecedented storm. Enough. Qin Wentian couldn't help but berate when he saw the two of them fighting in a frenzy. Abruptly, the silhouette of the black-robed man retreated. Yun Mengyi hesitated for a moment before sheathing her sword as well. Such a scene caused Ouyang Guangxing to be dumbfounded. He stared speechlessly at Qin Wentian. Of the two in front of him, one cultivated the chaotic art of the heavenly devil, while the other cultivated the heavenly swordplay. Just a single sentence from Qin Wendian and the two of them actually stopped fighting? One couldn't help but say that such a scene was extremely bizarre. Even Qin Wendian himself couldn't help but be stunned when he saw the might of that roar. His eyes gleamed with sharpness, he still couldn't guess Yun Mengyi's identity. But this black-robed figure appeared out of nowhere and intercepted Zhang Chen. Could it be that he was really here to help him? You recognize me? Qin Wendian stared at the black-robed man as he asked. The black-robed man's deep eyes swept over to Qin Wendian as devilish qi permeated the air. Abruptly, he turned and walked away, leaving just like that. Yun Mengyi wanted to chase after him, yet Qin Wendian interjected, "Stop right there." Yun Mengyi halted her steps as she stared at Qin Wendian, only to see Qin Wendian asking, "Who are you exactly? Why are you following me?" Cold eyes swept over to Qin Wendian before Yun Mengyi departed, causing Qin Wendian to awkwardly stand there as he shrugged his shoulders at Ouyang Guangsheng. He couldn't see through these two at all. "Let's return." Ouyang Guangsheng spoke as the two of them departed together. Very swiftly, the news of the earlier battle circulated around. However, the main character of the incident, Qin Wendian, was marginalized. Nobody paid attention to him, but the news of the chaotic art of the heavenly devil had caused quite a commotion. Other than that, there was also a rumor stating that the sword technique used by the ice-cold maiden was the heavenly swordplay. As Qin Wendian returned to his residence, he couldn't help but to discuss the matters of Chu with Luo Huan. He didn't know how the Emperor's Star Academy was doing, and that there were still his loved ones in the Sky Harmony City. However, Luo Huan didn't know much. She only knew that Chu Wuwei was trying his best to revive the Emperor's Star Academy, and wanted to strengthen the Chu country. After their conversation, Qin Wendian returned to his own courtyard. The night sky was as dark as ink, and within his courtyard, Qin Wendian sat cross-legged. The matters of today had stirred up his heart. Mo Qingqing was safe and sound, which naturally caused him to heave a sigh of relief in his heart. Seeing her safe and sound, Qin Wendian was also at ease. However, Zhang Chen's current strength made her feel threatened. Not only that, in the battle today, Zhang Chen definitely hadn't used all of his trump cards. Yun Mengyi and the mysterious black-robed figure were both exceedingly powerful. Not to mention Yang Fan from the Star-Seizing Manor and Hua Feng from the Hua clan. His goal this time around was to become one of the top 3 rankers in the Heavenly Fate rankings. Many Yuan meteor stones appeared in Qin Wendian's palms, as he prepared to use them for his cultivation. The Heavenly Fate rankings was no longer the same as before. Back then, he could easily defeat opponents 2 levels higher than him. But now, he didn't have absolute confidence that he would be able to win against the most outstanding characters of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Hence, he had to cultivate some powerful techniques first. The heaven-breaking finger left behind by the Gold Element Ascendant was extremely powerful, but its consumption of Yuan meteor stones was exceedingly high. Other than the 81 stances of the demonic art, he still needed some other powerful innate techniques as his trump cards. And now, in his memories, there was an extremely powerful innate technique. The tiny astral being was left behind by his old fogey father, and had always been Qin Wendian's greatest secret. In these 2 years, he had expended a considerable amount of Yuan meteor stones to stimulate the memories of many of his old fogey father's memories. Other than that, he had also obtained an extremely powerful innate technique. This technique was known as the Heartbreak Ancient Clock. Heartbreak, as the name suggested, was able to destroy the heart. This technique could only be activated by condensing divine energy from the ancient clock, and was exceedingly difficult to cultivate. This ancient clock was originally a 3rd-ranked divine inscription. Qin Wendian had always been cultivating this innate technique, and today, he had finally completed the most important step. In that instant, he was already able to condense the divine inscriptions on the ancient clock, ensuring that he could unleash this technique as he pleased. There was another reason why this technique was so difficult. It required the aid of the rhythm of one's heart, and was exceedingly profound. Luckily, Qin Wendian had awakened the heart candle flame. He guessed that it was precisely because of this that his old fogey father was able to cultivate such a powerful and mysterious innate technique. Qin Wentian's eyes were tightly shut, yet within his body, the heart candle flame was still quietly burning. Qin Wentian attempted to connect the heart candle flame with his divine energy, as though it was fusing with his body. This process was also exceedingly difficult. In the blink of an eye, it was already deep into the night. In the courtyard, rustling sounds rang out, causing Qin Wentian to frown. Abruptly, Qin Wentian roared as he blasted out with his palms. Instantly, divine energy erupted forth as an illusory ancient clock appeared in the air. Yunmengyi was leisurely strolling about when she suddenly felt her heart pounding. Her beautiful eyes instantly froze, and upon seeing the ancient clock in front of her, she grabbed out with her palms. Boom! The sound of the bell reverberated through the air. Yunmengyi groaned in agony as her heart pounded violently, as though someone was stabbing it with a sword. Her beautiful eyes opened as she stared at Qin Wentian. What kind of innate technique was this? It was actually so unfathomable. What are you doing here? Qin Wentian opened his eyes, staring at Yunmengyi as he asked. Cold Yunmengyi's countenance, she stared at Qin Wentian as she asked, what innate technique is this? Heartbreak ancient clock, Qin Wentian calmly replied. Heartbreak, it's very powerful. Yunmengyi continued, if your cultivation base broke through to the 8th level of Yuanfu, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to withstand the continuous reverberations of the ancient clock. Qin Wentian didn't say anything, he only stared at Yunmengyi. Now that it was night time, why would Yunmengyi come to his residence? Although I'm not a beauty capable of toppling empires, I'm still considered a beauty. Why do you dislike me so much? Yunmengyi couldn't help but ask when she saw the coldness in Qin Wentian's eyes. Qin Wentian was somewhat bewildered, he didn't expect Yunmengyi to say such a thing. This doesn't seem like the you I knew before. Qin Wentian's voice was as cold as ever. Before this, I was only pretending to be cold. If you like me, I'm willing to give up everything for you. A gentle smile abruptly appeared on Yunmengyi's face. She slowly walked towards Qin Wentian, placing her hands on her shoulders as she took off her white robes. Momentarily, her fragrant shoulders were revealed, as well as her sexy collarbones. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows, this Yunmengyi was becoming more and more abnormal. What do you want exactly? Qin Wentian coldly asked. Yunmengyi allowed her white robe to fall to the ground. Her alluring figure actually moved to the side of Qin Wentian, softly leaning on Qin Wentian's shoulder as she asked, are you not moved by me at all? Qin Wentian turned, placing his hands on Yunmengyi's soft and supple shoulders. He could feel the coldness of Yunmengyi's skin as he shifted his gaze downwards, staring at that alluring spot. Yunmengyi's countenance changed. Humph! Qin Wentian waved his hands as the white robe flew over. He draped it over Yunmengyi's shoulders as he coldly stated, if there's nothing else, don't disturb my cultivation. Yunmengyi's countenance changed. After which, she stood up and flicked her sleeves. It was unknown if she was blaming Qin Wentian for being so insensitive. Chapter 343. As Qin Wentian watched Yunmengyi depart, his heart couldn't help but be in a state of chaos. Yunmengyi was as beautiful as a snow lotus on a mountain of ice, it was impossible for Qin Wentian to not be moved by her actions. After all, he was a hot-blooded young man who had yet to experience the pleasures between a man and a woman. However, his state of heart was already extremely tough, hence he was naturally able to control himself. This Yunmengyi was becoming more and more of an enigma, blocking his vision. After contemplating for a moment, Qin Wentian closed his eyes and continued his cultivation. He needed to have as many trump cards as he could before the ranking battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings began, to contend against the demon-level geniuses of Grand Xia. Early the next morning, several transcendent powers in Ginkgo received invitations from the great solar Qin clan, inviting the younger generations of their Qin clan for a gathering. And this matter was caused by the young master of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, Ouyang Guangsheng. It was rumored that Ouyang Guangxing was incomparably audacious. He actually personally went to the Great Solar Qin clan to challenge them, wanting to spar with the younger generations of the Great Solar Qin clan. Hence, the Great Solar Qin clan invited several transcendent powers over. Other than the Ouyang aristocrat clan, there were also the Shi clan of Ginkgo, the Hua clan and the Pil Emperor Hall of the Moon Continent, the Wang clan of the War Continent, and the Swallow Swordsman. This caused many to be startled, because the Qin clan's invitation this time around had a deeper meaning. In the 9 continents of Grand Xia, there were a total of 36 transcendent powers. And among them, the 9 strongest transcendent powers were also known by the public. These 9 transcendent powers were as follows: Ginkgo, Venerate Heaven's Sect, Qin Clan, Shi Clan, Moon Continent, Pil Emperor Hall, Hua Clan, War Continent, Wang Clan, Azure Continent, Ouyang Aristocrat Clan, Demon Continent, Sky Demon Sect, Swallow Continent, Swallow Swordsman. Among them, Ginkgo was the strongest, with the Moon Continent second. The transcendent powers invited by the Qin clan were all in there, only the Venerate Heaven's Sect and Sky Demon Sect weren't invited. The status of the Venerate Heaven's Sect was unique. They could determine the rankings of Grand Xia. Once upon a time, the founder of the Venerate Heaven's Sect was an official in charge of the Imperial Astronomical Observatory of Grand Xia, and he had the ability to peer into the fate of Grand Xia. There were rumors saying that if the rebellion back then didn't have his support, it would have been impossible. Naturally, he was able to predict many things. Hence, the later generations all believed that the founder of the Venerate sect was the most important person among the traitors. Not only that, other than the Ouyang aristocrat clan, the other 5 powers that were invited by the Qin clan were all established by the 9 traitors of Grand Xia. In Grand Clan, the Ouyang clan was the Ouyang, the clan of the Qin. The Ouyang aristocrat clan was currently on the way to the Qin clan. As Qin Wendian and Ouyang Guangxing chatted about this topic, waves of shock could be felt in his heart. Back then, he had personally witnessed the leader of the 9 grand clans acting against Princess Tianyu in the Divine Steel. He didn't know which power was the founder of that young man. I to say, the Qin of the ancient emperor. The ancient Ti say, of Qin of and 2. The Qin's Ti the that he. To say the tut the clan and his two, of course they were. If it weren't for the destruction of the other 2 transcendent powers, Grand Xia would still be governed by the 9 grand clans. Qin Wendian sighed. Of course they were. If it weren't for the destruction of the other 2 transcendent powers, the current Grand Xia would still be governed by the 9 grand clans. Ouyang Guangxing nodded. One must know that although the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Sky Demon sect replaced them and joined the ranks of the 9 grand clans, they are still ranked at the bottom. Not only that, back then, there were 9 grand clans in Grand Xia. Each of them occupied one of the 9 continents, ruling over an entire prefecture. But after that, the strongest clan in Ginkgo was annihilated. Only then did the Venerate Heaven's Sect, Qin clan, and Shi clan return to Ginkgo. The Hua clan moved to the central region of Grand Xia, the Moon Continent, and as time passed, the other major powers rose up as well, forming the current Grand Xia. Ouyang Guangxing sighed as he recalled the events of the past. The current Grand Xia can no longer be referred to as an empire. It's too fragmented, with the various kings vying for supremacy. No transcendent power could unify Grand Xia. Back then, the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia was simply too powerful. The Pil Concoction clan became the current Pil Emperor Hall, the Weaponsmithing clan became the current Wang clan of the War Continent, the Imperial Astronomer clan became the Venerate Heaven's Sect, the Warring clans became the Qin clan, Shi clan, Swallow Swordsman. If it wasn't for the fact that the Pil Concoction clan weakened greatly over the past few thousand years, they would have been even more terrifying. Impressive, but didn't stellar martial cultivators grow stronger and stronger? Why did the strength of Grand Xia gradually weaken? Fan Luo was also seriously listening at the side. At this moment, he couldn't help but interject. I heard that there's a possibility that there are other transcendent powers outside of Grand Xia. Maybe, it's because of the weakening of Grand Xia. Those outstanding geniuses knew that they couldn't advance any further in Grand Xia, hence they chose to leave. If the overall strength of Grand Xia was tyrannical, there's no need for them to leave. Ouyang Guangxing didn't know much about this, hence he casually guessed. Qin Wentian and the rest nodded their heads lightly. There was some logic in his words. Isn't this the same as the 9 continents and Chu? If Chu was as strong as the 9 continents, there's no need for us to travel from Chu to the 9 continents. In that case, the outside world is even more terrifying compared to Grand Xia. Chu Mang mumbled to himself, yet his words caused Qin Wentian's countenance to change. What was the limit of cultivation? How vast was the land of the 9 continents? Could supreme experts really be like what the rumors said, able to shatter the heavens and earth, pluck the stars from the heavens? As they spoke, they landed outside the Qin clan. Momentarily, their silhouettes landed on the ground, showing their respect to the Qin clan. Outside the Qin clan, there were already people welcoming them, leading them into the Qin clan. I'm so excited to see my little lover. Luo Huan couldn't help but smile when she saw Qin Wentian staring at her. She already knew of the news regarding Imo Qingcheng. Back then, it was just a joke, but who would have thought that today, they would actually become a couple. Both of them were so outstanding, it was just that there seemed to be some difficulties between them. Sis, don't tease me. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. The group of them arrived at the location of the Qin clan's banquet. It was actually an island located in the heart of a lake. Walking along the corridors of the pavilions, they could hear beautiful maidens playing music in the middle of the lake. The island in the heart of the lake was extremely vast, and there was even a training platform in the middle of it. At this moment, there were already many people present. Upon seeing the arrival of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, a middle-aged man immediately walked over, laughing. The Ouyang aristocrat clan's presence brings light to our humble dwelling. Brother Chen is too polite. The person in the lead of the Ouyang aristocrat clan was none other than Ouyang Guangxing's second uncle, Ouyang Long. He clasped his hands towards the middle-aged man, as a smile appeared on his face. There are so many guests today. If there are any areas where the hospitality is lacking, please don't take offense. There are seats over there, please take a seat. The person from the Qin clan pointed in a certain direction. Ouyang Long nodded his head as he smiled. Brother Qin, feel free to do as you please. After speaking, the person from the Qin clan left with smiles on his face. Ouyang Long and the rest found a seat and sat down. Many in the crowd turned their gazes over, only to see the Ouyang aristocrat clan personally accompanying the guests. Such a scene was naturally noticed by those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Their countenances flickered with unhappiness. It seemed like the Qin clan was intentionally doing this to show off their might. Although their words were polite, they were clearly disrespecting them. Qin Wentian only felt a cold glint of light boring into him. He turned his gaze over in a certain direction, only to see Wang Zhao's gaze was as sharp as a blade. Beside him, Xiao Xian from the Mystic Maiden Palace had also accompanied him here, wanting to experience the various powers of Grand Xia. Today, out of the 7 transcendent powers of Grand Xia, other than those from the Ginkgo continent, the other 6 would all be here. The people from the War continent truly have a sharp aura, Qin Wentian mused as he swept his gaze over to the crowd in Wang Zhao's direction. After which, he turned his gaze over, only to see a group of silhouettes clad in white, with ancient swords strapped to their backs. They must be the Swallow Swordsmen. There were also those from the Hua clan and the Pill Emperor Hall. His gaze instantly landed on Luo He. At this moment, Luo He was currently chatting with the leader of the Hua clan. The Hua clan had always wanted to get closer to the Pill Emperor Hall. Hence, they also had the intention of forming a marriage alliance. Luo He seemed to have sensed something. She turned her gaze over, instantly landing on Qin Wentian as her eyes turned sharp. Qin Wentian only felt an immense pressure bearing down on him. Luo He's countenance was filled with coldness as she stared at him. It was precisely because of this young man that her disciple, Mo Qingcheng, couldn't forget about him. In fact, even her status as a master couldn't be compared to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian. Not far away from Luo He, Zhan Chen's eyes flickered with a golden light as he stared at Qin Wentian, his killing intent unmasked. Those from the Hua clan also turned their gazes onto Qin Wentian. Was this young man the one who killed Hua Xiaoyun? Their gazes were extremely cold when they stared at Qin Wentian, as though Qin Wentian was already a dead man. The Hua clan didn't care about Hua Xiaoyun's death. That was because Hua Xiaoyun was a silkpants who often stirred up trouble outside. Other than those closest to him, no one else would feel pity for him. Although they didn't care about Hua Xiaoyun's death, Qin Wentian's death was undoubtedly a humiliation to the Hua clan. Naturally, they wouldn't care, because there was someone else who would make Qin Wentian die. Hua Taishu, who had always doted on Hua Xiaoyun, would definitely not allow Qin Wentian to live for too long. As long as he was alive, Qin Wentian would definitely die. Other than Zhan Chen, among the Chen clan, Chen Rant's gaze was exceptionally cold when he stared at Qin Wentian. However, he didn't dare to reveal anything. After all, he had been defeated by Qin Wentian. He didn't have the face to mention this matter in front of everyone. He didn't have the face to seek revenge from Qin Wentian, because that was a defeat. How would he dare to speak of the humiliation of being defeated in front of so many people? Qin Wentian's countenance was as calm as ever. Just based on what Hua Xiaoyun had done to Mo Qingcheng, if he had the chance again, he would still kill him without hesitation. This matter wouldn't affect his state of mind. Zhan Chen was a ruthless person, willing to use any means necessary to achieve his goals. He even killed the person who loved him. Since he wanted to kill Qin Wentian, why wouldn't he, Qin Wentian, want to kill Zhan Chen as well? At the end of the corridor, another group of silhouettes walked over. They were none other than the members of the Shi clan. Those from the Shi clan all had demonic expressions on their faces. Their long hair was as black as ink, incomparably black, and they exuded a cold and imposing aura. It's rumored that the members of the Shi clan possess the bloodline of a primordial beast, and are natural-born warriors. They once chased after the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, conquering everything under the heavens and unifying Grand Xia. Ouyang Guangxing spoke in a low voice, causing a look of bewilderment to appear on Qin Wentian's face. Those from the Shi clan actually possessed the bloodline of a primordial beast. Chapter 344. The Shi clan's situation involuntarily made Qin Wentian think of himself. In his body, there were two types of bloodlines. One of them was the bloodline of a primordial demon king. Even though his cultivation base was already at the 7th level of Yuanfu, he still hadn't unearthed the secrets of his bloodline. The two types of bloodlines in his body contained boundless potential, waiting for him to slowly discover them. The people of the Shi clan sat down, and immediately, the crowd gradually took their seats. Maids continuously prepared the banquet and placed it in front of the crowd. The atmosphere was relaxed, as if it was a banquet, without the slightest bit of anger. The various transcendent powers also seemed to be in harmony with each other, but who would have thought that they had been secretly competing for supremacy for so many years? It's an honor for all of you to come to my Qin clan. The new generation will replace the old, and now that I'm able to see the rising stars of the younger generations, I feel gratified in my heart. In the direction of the Qin clan, the person in the lead was clad in luxurious robes that had the image of a dazzling sun engraved on it. Brother Hua, why isn't nephew Taishu here? The middle-aged man from the Qin clan glanced in the direction of the Hua clan as he asked. In terms of rising stars, Hua Taishu was undoubtedly the number one. He had already dominated the heavenly fate rankings for many years. Taishu is currently breaking through to the 2nd level of Heavenly Dipper. In the direction of the Hua clan, a person smiled, his countenance filled with faint arrogance, causing the countenances of the crowd to stiffen. Hua Taishu was indeed worthy of his title as the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Now that he was already breaking through to the 2nd level of Heavenly Dipper, there was no doubt that he was already widening the gap between him and the other rankers. Ha, seems like nephew Taishu will definitely become a hegemon of the Hua clan in the future. The person from the Qin clan laughed. With Hua Taishu's outstanding talent, he had already surpassed all his peers and even the elders of the Hua clan. If this continued, the position of leader of the Hua clan would definitely belong to Hua Taishu in the future. Isn't nephew Qin Wang the same as well? The person from the Hua clan politely replied. Qin Wang of the great solar Qin clan wasn't referring to a certain heavenly dipper king, but rather, it was the second ranker of the heavenly fate rankings. His name was Qin Wang, and it was rumored that the Qin clan had high hopes for him to become the next great solar Qin clan. He can't, he's still stuck at the peak of Yuanfu. The person from the Qin clan waved his hands with a smile. Nephew Qin Wang naturally has his reasons for staying at Yuanfu. That person from the Hua clan casually laughed. He had heard that Qin Wang could have broken through to Heavenly Dipper long ago, yet he was still stuck at Yuanfu. How is nephew Shirpadian? The people from the Qin clan changed the topic and looked in the direction of the Shi clan. Shi Tian, he Qin Wang. Same old, the others have all broken through, but he's still stuck at the 9th level of Yuanfu. That person from the Shi clan replied. The person from the Qin laughed. Wang, the person from Qin Tian of the Qin clan, said. Wang. The person from the Qin clan laughed. I wonder how strong the 5th-ranked Azure Emperor is. That brat has always been a mystery. We won't interfere in the matters of the younger generation. For the ranking battle this time around, we will just be spectators, Luo he calmly stated, causing the gazes of many to shift in the direction of the Pill Emperor Hall. I wonder how strong the 5th ranker is, Emperor Azure. He's always been mysterious. That's true, the strongest juniors in the Heavenly Fate rankings are all gathered here today. Let's just watch the show. The middle-aged man from the Qin clan casually laughed. Every time the Heavenly Fate rankings came up, the various transcendent powers would be extremely concerned. In Grand Xia, there had always been a rumor saying that the Heavenly Fate rankings determined the fate of Grand Xia. The juniors of the transcendent powers would be the most outstanding, and the higher the rankings they obtained, the better the luck of that transcendent power would be. The juniors of the strongest transcendent powers in Grand Xia had always monopolized the rankings of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Grand Xia was a power established by the 7 ancient empires. They had monopolized the top 3 rankings for countless years, and there were no exceptions. This kind of monopolization was especially true for the few powers in Ginkgo. Luo He, I heard that the female disciple you accepted, Mo Qingcheng, possesses the heart of 7 orifices and is a beauty capable of toppling empires. I've yet to meet her. What's the purpose of your visit today? Someone asked. That lass painstakingly cultivates, she doesn't like crowds. Luo He casually replied. But as the sound of her voice faded, her countenance stiffened as she smiled, but today, I'll still be here to pay my respects to the various elders. As the sound of her voice faded, a few silhouettes drifted over from afar. The female in the lead was clad in white, elegant and transcendent. Her countenance was flawless, there was nothing to nitpick about her. This caused the countenances of many in the crowd to stiffen. Even those of the elders couldn't help but feel their hearts trembling. No wonder a character like Hua Taishu was interested in her. How could anyone not fall in love with such a woman with the talent of the heart of 7 orifices? As for the juniors of the transcendent powers, their gazes froze as they stared at that fairy-like countenance, their hearts involuntarily palpitated. Everyone loved beauty. No matter if it was a person with extraordinary talent or a mediocre and incompetent person, there was no exception. Luo Huan nudged Qin Wentian's arm, causing Qin Wentian to smile bitterly at her as he whispered, "Sis, stop fooling around. She seems to be even more beautiful than before. Could it be that cultivation really has the effect of enhancing one's looks? Seems like I have to work harder as well." Luo Huan laughed. The current Mo Qingcheng was glowing with a mystical light. Only to see Mo Qingcheng arriving in the direction of the Pill Emperor Hall, bowing to Luo He as she called out, "Master." Qingcheng, quickly pay your respects to the various elders. Luo he nodded lightly. Qingcheng bowed to the crowd, her every movement was filled with elegance, stirring the hearts of many of the juniors. It was as though they had just found their dream girl. Qingcheng pays her respects to the various elders. Qingcheng spoke in a low voice. After which, she shifted her gaze in the direction of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, and upon seeing Qin Wentian looking at her, a hint of mischievousness flashed past her eyes, causing Qin Wentian to be stunned. Warmth flowed in his heart, such an expression reminded him of the past. Many of the juniors rubbed their eyes. What happened earlier? Did they see wrongly? Luo he, congratulations on accepting a good disciple. I wonder if you already have someone in your heart. If not, can you take a look at the juniors of my Qin clan? The middle-aged man from the Qin clan laughed. Just when Luo he was about to reply, Qingcheng replied, reporting to senior, I already have someone in my heart. Oh. The countenance of the middle-aged man from the Qin clan stiffened. Could it be that Qingcheng had really fallen in love with Hua Taishu? But given Hua Taishu's talent, the two of them were indeed more suitable for each other. Naturally, there was also the possibility that it was Zhan Chen. After all, they were both disciples of the Pill Emperor Hall, and could be considered as fellow apprentice siblings. It wasn't strange for feelings to develop over time. I wonder which outstanding talent it is, to have such good luck. The middle-aged man from the Qin clan laughed. You all will know him after the ranking battle, Qingcheng replied with a smile. Qingcheng smiled as she replied. Her words caused many in the crowd to have expressions of shock on their faces. In that case, it wasn't Hua Taishu. In fact, it might not even be Zhan Chen. Let's not talk about this matter for now. Luo he was somewhat unhappy as she indifferently stated. The middle-aged man from the Qin clan nodded. His gaze finally shifted in the direction of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. A few days ago, nephew Ouyang Quangsheng wanted the younger generations of the Ouyang aristocrat clan to spar against the younger generations of my Qin clan. Hence, this banquet was held today. I invited all of you here today not only to catch up on our friendship, but also to see how the cultivation of our younger generations are progressing. Chen Wang, Shirpatian, and the rest were all in the future. Evidently, they didn't intend to allow those juniors to clash against each other earlier. The ranking battle was their true stage. Ouyang Quangsheng's cultivation base was merely at the 7th level of Yuanfu. If he wanted to spar, the Qin clan would naturally satisfy him. Is everyone interested? The middle-aged man from the Qin clan smiled as he stared at the crowd. How do we spar? The middle-aged man from the Wang clan asked. Since nephew Ouyang's cultivation base is at the 7th level of Yuanfu, let's set it at the same level. Each faction will choose one of their members to spar, while the others will choose their own to support them. Let's see who is the strongest. How about it? The middle-aged man from the Qin clan laughed. This spar is only to liven up the atmosphere of the banquet, there's no need to be too serious. Sure, do you want to bet something? Someone in the crowd laughed. Fine, the final victor can make a request to the other transcendent powers. As long as the request isn't too excessive, and the other transcendent powers have no objections, they can agree to it. How about it? The middle-aged man from the Qin clan continued, as the others nodded their heads. A spar between juniors was only for the sake of liveliness. The main purpose of the Qin clan today was to humiliate the Ouyang aristocrat clan. They knew that other than Chen Wang, there was another demon-level character at the 7th level of Yuanfu who wasn't any weaker compared to Chen Wang. Since everyone has agreed, let's begin the sparring. As the sound of the middle-aged man's voice faded, two figures walked out from the direction of the Qin clan. As expected, it's Qin Zhan. The gazes of the spectators sharpened as they stared at one of them. Qin Zhan's talent was exceedingly terrifying, able to fight against opponents at the 9th level of Yuanfu. His comprehension of the great solar universe art was also extremely high. Will you accompany me? Ouyang Quangsheng stared at Qin Wentian. For this battle, if Qin Wendian accompanied him, there would be no suspense at all. Qin Wendian nodded his head lightly. After hearing the words of the middle-aged man from the Chen clan, he instantly decided that he would participate in this battle. The conditions he would propose were simple, but to him, they were extremely important. The two of them exchanged glances and laughed as they stepped onto the sparring platform. The other participants from the 6 transcendent powers also stepped out. Wang Xiao was also among them. His gaze wasn't on Qin Zhan from the Chen clan, but was fixed on Qin Wendian instead. He knew that Qin Wendian was even more terrifying compared to Qin Zhan. Before Qin Wendian had ascended the heavenly steel steps, he was already able to fight against Situpa without losing. Not only that, his improvements on the heavenly steel steps were not small. Now, even Wang Xiao felt that his combat prowess was unfathomable. But one thing was for sure, he was definitely extremely powerful. The great Solar Chen clan's plan had failed. Qin Wendian, you killed a member of my Hua clan. Today, I want to teach you a lesson. In the direction of the Hua clan, a young man coldly spoke. Qin Wendian didn't even bother to glance at him. The auras of the various transcendent powers were all extremely powerful. The middle-aged man from the Chen clan laughed as he prepared to explain the rules of the sparring. Ouyang, I don't want to waste time, Qin Wendian spoke in a low voice, causing Ouyang Quangxing to freeze. What was this fellow trying to do? After which, Qin Wendian pulled Ouyang Quangxing along as he took a step forwards. For people of our generation, if we want to battle, we should strive to be the strongest. The countenances of the spectators froze as they stared at Qin Wendian. What did this young man mean by that? After which, they only heard Qin Wendian continuing, there's no need for any rules. All of you, come at me together. Ouyang Quangxing's heart trembled. This fellow. But to Qin Wendian, sparring with someone on the same level as him was indeed meaningless. Chapter 345. Qin Wendian's calm voice caused the entire space to turn silent, so silent that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Ouyang Quangxing had declared that he wanted to spar with the youths from the great Solar Chen clan. The Chen clan wanted to use this opportunity to humiliate Ouyang Quangxing, yet at this moment, the person beside Ouyang Quangxing actually dared to say, all of you, come at me together. Although the participants on the stage were all at the 7th level of Yuanfu, in terms of combat prowess, any one of them could easily kill an ordinary 8th level Yuanfu cultivator. The 6 transcendent powers were currently the strongest 6 out of the 9 transcendent powers in Grand Xia. The 12 outstanding youths were all prepared to display their prowess. They would be missing out on the ranking battle this time around, and even if they participated, they wouldn't be able to become the most dazzling existences. But if they could display their prowess here, they would be able to gain some glory for their clan lord. Who might you be? Chen Zhan from the great Solar Chen clan asked. He didn't even know who this person was. Among the spectators, other than those from the Hua clan and Pil Emperor Hall, the vast majority of them didn't know who Qin Wendian was. Maybe, this was the first time he appeared in the eyes of the transcendent powers in Grand Xia. But of course, this wouldn't be the best. At this moment, the spectators still hadn't realized that from today onwards, this young man would cause a tempest in Grand Xia. Qin Wendian. A calm voice drifted out from Qin Wendian's mouth. Chen Zhan's countenance flickered with the light of the great solar sun, resembling a ball of fire. Chen Zhan took a step forward, causing the earth to tremble. Chen Zhan's body was bathed in the sun's rays, blinding the eyes of the spectators as he arrogantly stated, arrogant words, not knowing the immensity of the heavens and earth. The 2 of us from the Chen clan shall fight the 2 of you first. The others didn't move. To them, a group of people ganging up on Qin Wendian wasn't something to be proud of. Chen Zhan's combat prowess was high, they would let him test how strong Qin Wendian was. Qin Wendian clenched his fists as he took a step forward, standing together with Ouyang Quangxing in the middle of the stage. All of you, do as you please. Qin Wendian gathered a terrifying power in his palm, and wisps of demonic aura filled the air. Boom! Chen Zhan stepped out, staring at Qin Wentian. The great solar universe energy gushed forth from his body as a fearsome might gushed forth. The spectators could clearly feel the scorching heat radiating from it. Abruptly, Chen Zhan soared up into the air, standing there in the air. Rays of sunlight cascaded down from the heavens, enveloping him in an armor of light. Suddenly, 9 cosmic sunflower swords appeared in the air, blazing flames sweeping through the air. Kill! The cosmic sunflower sword slashed down from the heavens, leaving 9 beams of light in its wake, as though 9 blazing suns were slashing towards Qin Wentian. He wanted everyone to know that he was Chen Zhan of the great solar Qin clan. Only to see Qin Wentian inclined his head, staring at Chen Zhan. His body actually soared up into the air with the cosmic sunflower sword in his hands. His palms trembled as he directly blasted out a palm strike, shattering the cosmic sunflower sword into nothingness. Chen Zhan's countenance changed, but it was only for an instant. Qin Wentian wasn't strong, he wasn't a challenge at all. However, at this moment, a terrifying gaze pierced through his eyes of flames. Chen Zhan only felt his mind shuddering violently, while the spectators only saw Qin Wentian stepping out, instantly appearing in front of Chen Zhan and punching out with his fist. Chen Zhan howled in rage as the cosmic sunflower storm erupted forth. Pang! With a clean and direct punch, Chen Zhan's body was directly flung through the air. Splashing sounds rang out as the lake water splashed everywhere. Chen Zhan fell into the lake. Suppression of strength. The eyes of the spectators below were all extremely sharp. They instantly understood that Qin Wentian had used his absolute advantage in strength to suppress Chen Zhan. In front of absolute strength, all methods and innate techniques were useless. Strength to defeat 10, strength to break 10,000 techniques. Below, Ouyang Guangsheng was fighting against another young man from the great solar Qin clan. Similarly, Ouyang Guangsheng had the absolute advantage. With a single punch, his opponent was forced back onto the platform, coughing out blood. The Ouyang aristocrat clan against the great solar Qin clan, a complete victory. At this moment, everyone understood that if they were to exchange pointers, none of them would be a match for the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Only to see Qin Wentian stepping out as he dove downwards. Staring at Wang Xiao, he coldly spat out a single word, scram. As the sound of his voice faded, Wang Xiao only felt a terrifying pressure bearing down on him. His countenance drastically changed as a boundless sharpness gushed forth from him. The 2 young men from the Wang clan soared up into the air, only to see Qin Wentian blasting out with another palm strike. An incomparably gigantic ape palm imprint blasted out as the 2 young men from the Wang clan were both flung through the air. Bzzz. A raging wind gusted by as 5 to 6 silhouettes simultaneously soared up into the skies. Their astral souls erupted forth as they lunged towards Qin Wentian. Numerous terrifying tempests swept past, enveloping Qin Wentian as a terrifying pressure bore down on him. At the same time, there were 2 other cultivators moving towards Ouyang Guangsheng. Seeing how tyrannical Qin Wentian was, they knew that if they continued to wait, they would all be swept away. In the air, Qin Wentian flicked his sleeves as he stared at the incoming cultivators. His long hair was as black as ink, allowing the tempests to rain down on him. He stood at his original location, unmoving. In an instant, the cultivators all landed beside Qin Wentian, unleashing all sorts of terrifying attacks. At this moment, Qin Wentian blasted out with a palm strike. Boom! The sound of a bell reverberated through the air, shaking the heavens and earth. The sound of the bell resonated in the hearts of those around Qin Wentian, causing their hearts to tremble violently. Groaning in agony, blood seeped out from the corners of their mouths. Boom! Yet another bell chime. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as the crowd only saw towering amounts of demonic qi in the air. That black-haired young man had unleashed a barrage of attacks. Peng, pang, pang, a series of suppressive attacks erupted forth, and the young men from the various transcendent powers were all blasted back to their respective clans, coughing out blood as their countenances paled. The young man stood proudly in the air. Even though he was just standing there casually, he gave off the illusion that he was unparalleled in the world. At this moment, the crowd couldn't help but think of a phrase, unrivaled in the same cultivation realm. Such combat prowess could indeed be said to be unrivaled in the same cultivation realm. The countenances of those from the various transcendent powers flickered as their countenances turned unsightly. Only those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan had smiles on their faces. Seems like Ouyang Quangsheng was right back then. This young man who dared to beat up Ouyang Ting in the Ouyang aristocrat clan was truly a character. Only Duan Qingshan and Ouyang Ting had unsightly expressions on their faces. How did this young man grow so strong so quickly? In the direction of the Pill Emperor Hall, Luo He's eyes flashed with sharpness. This young man was extraordinary, no wonder Qingqing couldn't forget him. Qin Wentian already had the demeanor of a transcendent void cultivator. Suppressing all those on the same level as him, he was unrivaled in Grand Xia. When he stepped into the 9th level of Yuanfu, there was no doubt that he would become the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings. Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes flickered with a brilliant light. If this was the case, she was even more confident in Qin Wentian. He would definitely be able to defeat Zhang Chen. The battle below also concluded. Ouyang Quangsheng had defeated 2 of his opponents, but his brilliance was completely overshadowed by Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian landed on the ground, standing shoulder to shoulder with Ouyang Quangsheng. Ouyang Quangsheng laughed, "Seniors, I have a request from my brother, Qin Wentian. I hope that all of you would be able to fulfill it. If it's not too overboard, I'm sure no one would reject it." The countenance of the middle-aged man from the Qin clan flickered with coldness. How could he smile in such a situation? Only to see Qin Wentian shifting his gaze in the direction of the Pill Emperor Hall. His eyes landed on Luo He as he stated, "Junior's request is that I hope Senior Luo He can agree to a private chat with your disciple, Mo Qingcheng, for an hour. This request shouldn't be too overboard, right?" The countenances of Luo He and Zhang Chen froze, only to hear Zhang Chen interjected, "Martial uncle, junior apprentice sister is a heaven's chosen, how can she meet with others alone?" Strange expressions appeared on the faces of those from the various transcendent powers. This young man was so outstanding, yet he couldn't resist the charms of a beauty. Upon seeing a character like Mo Qingcheng, he actually wanted to go on a date with her. How interesting! However, no matter how outstanding Qin Wentian was, it was still impossible for him to pursue Mo Qingcheng. "An hour? Master, I have no problem with that." Mo Qingcheng obediently replied, as though she was afraid that her master, Luo He, would make things difficult for her. However, Luo He's heart was as clear as a mirror. How could this lass have any objections? "Senior Luo He, since this is a promise made by all the elders, and Mo Qingcheng herself has agreed to it, I'm sure Senior wouldn't go back on your words, right?" Ouyang Quangsheng stated. Only then did Luo He reply, "It's in the vicinity." Disciple understands. Mo Qingcheng nodded her head, as she stepped forward. Qin Wentian smiled, "Miss Qingcheng, please follow me." After speaking, he turned and walked away, with Mo Qingcheng following behind him. The 2 of them left the island, and upon witnessing this scene, many of the youths had expressions of jealousy on their faces. This man was truly good at wooing women. So it turns out that he's also a lecherous person, coveting the beauty of others. Ouyang Ting cursed in a low voice. When she saw Mo Qingcheng's countenance, how could she not feel jealousy in her heart? "It's rare for us to gather together. Let's continue the banquet." The middle-aged man from the Chen clan spoke. As for Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng, they walked far away from each other, the further the better. Not long after, they arrived at the residence of the Pill Emperor Hall. Mo Qingcheng halted her steps as she turned her head to look at Qin Wentian. She couldn't help but to giggle, as beautiful as 100 flowers blooming at the same time. "Dumbo, to think that you can think of this." At this moment, Mo Qingqing had removed her disguise. Her saintly beauty was now revealing the demeanor of a little girl, exuding a sense of mischievousness. If others were to see her current demeanor, they would surely be stunned silly. Qin Wentian didn't say anything, he only stared at Mo Qingqing. Mo Qingqing's heart pounded rapidly as she rolled her eyes. What are you looking at? It's been a long time since I've seen you, I naturally want to see you to my heart's content. Qin Wentian walked up, coming to the side of Mo Qingqing. Staring into Qin Wentian's eyes, Mo Qingqing leaned forward, leaning into his embrace as she spoke in a gentle voice. It has been tough on you during these years. Am I not doing very well? What about you? How are you doing in the Pill Emperor Hall? Qin Wentian asked. Not too bad, Master treats me very well. Mo Qingqing pulled Qin Wentian along as they walked to the side of the river. She took out a small porcelain bottle from her robes and passed it to Qin Wentian. This is a third-rank limit break pill. Back then when I met you, I accidentally succeeded in concocting it. However, I only managed to produce 5 pills in a single cauldron, but it's sufficient. For this type of pill, only the first pill will have an immense effect. If you consume it a second time, it would be a waste. Take it. Although she spoke casually, Qin Wentian had no way to imagine how much effort she had put into concocting this batch of pills. Chapter 346. Limit-breaking Dan. Qin Wentian took the bottle from Mo Qingqing's hands, feeling a little taken aback. This name, could it help one break through to the next level? As long as your cultivation base is stable, there shouldn't be a problem for you to break through to the next level in the Yuanfu realm. I've kept one for myself, so that we can meet again during the ranking battle. Mo Qingqing winked mischievously. Qin Wentian's eyes also brightened as he leaned in closer to Mo Qingqing, causing her to smile in response. Such a heaven-defying medicinal pill must have been extremely difficult to concoct, right? Your alchemy skills and your cultivation base have both improved by leaps and bounds. How did you manage to reach such a level in the past few years? Qin Wentian stared at Mo Qingqing's beautiful countenance, his gentle voice causing one to feel a sense of warmth in their hearts. He could already imagine how hard Mo Qingqing had worked these past few years. You're already a 4th-ranked grandmaster, how can I fall behind? That's why I'm already a 4th-ranked alchemist. As for my cultivation base, it's actually very simple. Master said that I have the 7 apertures exquisite heart, and ever since it was awakened, I've been enlightened, and my comprehension abilities have become even more powerful. Mo Qingqing swung her legs in a relaxed manner. 4th-ranked grandmaster, 4th-ranked alchemist, don't you think we're a good match? As she spoke with a smile, Mo Qingqing felt that something was wrong. Qin Wentian's eyes were fixated on her, and his body was slowly leaning forward. What are you doing? Mo Qingqing felt her 7 apertures exquisite heart pounding rapidly, as a faint blush appeared on her face. Who would stare at someone like that? Qin Wentian's head got nearer and nearer, almost touching Mo Qingqing's head. The two of them could even feel each other's breaths. Mo Qingqing's heartbeat quickened, her body stiffened, and her shaking legs stopped moving. Why was she so nervous? This damnable Dumbo, what was he trying to do? Following which, Mo Qingqing felt her entire body tightening as she was embraced by a certain someone. Her heart pounded violently, and before she could even let out a cry of surprise, her lips were pressed against his. The first kiss of the pitiful number 1 beauty of Chu was snatched away just like that. A light sound rang out as their lips parted. Under the dumbfounded gaze of Mo Qingqing, a certain someone licked his lips, as though he hadn't had enough. After which, he turned his head and stared at the small river ahead as he spoke in a low voice, the scenery here is so beautiful. Mo Qingqing fiercely glared at him. He actually dared to praise the scenery. It was too hateful. Qin Wentian weakly turned his head, staring at Mo Qingqing's soul-stirring eyes as he smiled. Qingqing, what's wrong? Mo Qingqing stretched out her hands and grabbed onto Qin Wentian's waist, twisting it violently. Humph. Qingcheng, I just don't want to be called a fool by you again. Qin Wendian defended himself, only then did Mo Qingcheng spare him. What do you plan to do then? Don't worry, I will be responsible for you. Qin Wendian righteously stated, causing Mo Qingcheng's lips to twitch. No way, I want you to return it to me now. Eh. Qin Wendian's face was filled with black lines. How can I return it? Fool. Mo Qingcheng giggled, as she stroked her hair. That tiny movement of hers was so beautiful that it was suffocating. What made Qin Wendian even more dumbfounded was that Mo Qingcheng's arms wrapped around his neck as she pressed her lips against his, taking the initiative to give herself to him. Qin Wendian's eyes were wide open, as his eyelashes fluttered. His closed eyes seemed to be able to speak, filled with boundless emotions. Qin Wendian's heart was about to melt, as he tightly hugged the girl in front of him. The two of them used choppy movements to feel each other's breaths, exchanging the emotions in the depths of their hearts. The sound of their heartbeats could be heard clearly, as though they were composing a song of love. After a long time, their lips parted. Mo Qingcheng's face was already completely red, as she shyly glanced at Qin Wendian. After which, her body softly leaned into Qin Wendian's embrace, as she stared at the flowing river, silently feeling the heartbeat of Qin Wendian. A radiant smile appeared on Qin Wendian's face, as his heart was filled with boundless tenderness and warmth. All of this was worth it. Tightly hugging the beauty in his embrace, they didn't say anything else. Any words would be useless, they were using their hearts to communicate. An hour seemed to pass by in the blink of an eye. Mo Qingcheng still couldn't bear to leave Qin Wendian's warm embrace. Her eyes were red, as a crystalline tear rolled down her cheeks. However, her beautiful eyes were still filled with a smile. How wonderful would it be if time stood still, never to flow? Mo Qingcheng murmured. Upon hearing that intoxicating voice, Qin Wendian felt an unbearable pain in his heart, as he replied in a low voice, "It's all my fault for being useless. I didn't have the ability to keep you by my side." Upon hearing Qin Wendian's words, Mo Qingcheng stood up and pressed her finger against Qin Wendian's lips, as she whispered, "I forbid you to say such things." "Fine, I won't say it, but I will do my best to redeem everything." Qin Wendian stared at the traces of tears at the corner of Mo Qingcheng's eyes as an incomparably intense obsession appeared in his heart. That obsession took root in the depths of his heart. "I believe in you, I will always believe in you." Mo Qingcheng smiled radiantly, causing the surrounding scenery to become even more beautiful. In the ranking battle for the Heavenly Fate rankings, you have to defeat Zhang Chen no matter what. Master promised me that as long as you defeat him, he wouldn't interfere in my search for you. Right. Qin Wendian nodded his head. Staring at the silhouette in front of him, Qin Wendian laughed, not even mentioning Zhang Chen. "Even if I have to topple the entire Pill Emperor Hall, I will make sure to keep you by my side forever. Emicham, I will wait for you." Mo Qingcheng slowly stood up, pulling Qin Wendian's hand as she smiled. "I will return to my room first, I won't be returning to the banquet. You can stay here for a while longer, I will be able to see you even when I'm in the pavilion." Even if Master knew about this, he wouldn't say anything. "Okay, I will stay here." Qin Wendian nodded his head. Mo Qingcheng reluctantly released his hand, as she turned and walked away. Qin Wendian stared at the graceful silhouette of Mo Qingcheng as she slowly walked away, an indescribable feeling in his heart. When he was young, the first time he tasted love was because of that beautiful silhouette. Amidst the snowflakes, the word, Dumbo, had caused a seed to germinate in his heart. And now, this seed had gradually taken root, growing stronger and stronger. He knew that from now onwards, that beautiful silhouette of Mo Qingcheng had already been deeply imprinted in his heart, never to be erased. Love, this sort of thing, would cause people to feel a sense of wonder and warmth, yet it would also cause people's hearts to ache and feel conflicted. Drawing in a deep breath, Qin Wendian slowly turned around, continuing to sit there. The obsession in his heart grew stronger and stronger. It was as though he could see the traces of tears at the corner of Mo Qingcheng's eyes. It was because of his incompetence, causing her to cry. It was because of his incompetence, causing her to feel so miserable. If he could look down on this entire world with disdain, who would be able to obstruct him from being together with the person he loved? Closing his eyes, his intense perception permeated the air, enveloping this entire space as it extended outwards. He saw that Imo Qingqing had already returned to the pavilion. She was currently lying on the eaves of the pavilion, smiling as she stared at his silhouette. When he saw that beautiful countenance, as well as the gentle smile on her face, the obsession in his heart grew stronger and stronger. His perception also grew stronger, and was still frenziedly expanding outwards. This entire space was transparent to him, there was no obstruction at all. He saw many servants of the Chen clan bustling about, enduring the scoldings of their masters. He saw a cultivation ground. A young miss of the Chen clan was currently standing there, staring down at a servant who was kneeling on the ground. She was using vulgar words to insult her, saying that she didn't raise her demonic beast mount properly. Weak strength, inferior to a mount. He saw the direct descendants of the Chen clan sitting in their own pavilions, flipping through secret manuals of innate techniques. His perception even drifted back to the island in the center of the lake, where the banquet was held. The people there were all feigning civility. This time around, there was actually no one who noticed that Qin Wentian's perception was currently spying on them. In Qin Wentian's body, the candle flame was still flickering. It was like the flame in his heart, able to see through everything in this world. Qin Wentian felt that his perception was about to connect with this world. Under the influence of that obsession, he unknowingly entered a wondrous state. Such a state of enlightenment was exceedingly difficult to obtain. There were countless people who would never be able to enter this state even once in their entire lives. Imo Qingqing's peerless countenance, the expressions of the people at the banquet, the people living in the Chen clan, the sound of flowing water, the melody of the wind, all of these things entered his ears clearly. Qin Wentian felt that he could touch their existence. What is a state of cultivation? Qin Wentian asked himself. Being able to see through everything, to be able to clearly hear the rhythm of the world, was a state of cultivation. What is a will? Qin Wentian asked himself again. With a single thought, he could break free from the restraints on his body, and establish a connection with the external world. This was a state of cultivation. In that case, the second level of mandates wouldn't be so difficult to comprehend. Splashing sounds rang out as the water in the river started to move, as though there was a force acting on it. In the middle of the river, water gushed out, transforming into a water column. Only to see Qin Wentian slowly standing up. The water column grew taller and taller as it gushed towards the sky. Force is everywhere. Qin Wentian murmured. With a thunderous rumbling sound, the water column soared up to the skies. At the instant Qin Wentian opened his eyes, the water column fell back into the river, transforming into flowing water as it flowed away into the distance. Turning around, Qin Wentian turned his gaze towards the horizons. His eyes penetrated through space, staring at that beautiful smiling face. Imo Qingqing's beautiful eyes flickered, as though she was pleasantly surprised. With a sweet smile, that smile transformed into the entire world. Chapter 347. Imo Qingqing naturally understood that Qin Wentian's will was able to cause the pillar of water to surge forward. He had broken through. There was a kind of will of mandates that had broken through to the second level. To Qin Wentian, a breakthrough in his mandate was too important. He was very clear on how intense the ranking battle this time around would be. Those ranked at the top would definitely not be simple characters. Not only that, they had been stuck at the peak of Yuanfu for so many years. Although they had yet to step into Heavenly Dipper, how could the strongest among them not have comprehended the second level of mandates? The second level of mandates was one of the prerequisites for stepping into Heavenly Dipper. There were many who failed to comprehend the second level of mandates, and were forever stuck at the peak of Yuanfu. One could very well imagine the significance of this breakthrough to Qin Wentian. It increased his chances of ranking on the heavenly fate rankings. I'm leaving, Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. Mo Qingqing smiled and nodded her head. During the ranking battle, I will tell everyone in the world that you are my woman. Qin Wentian's calm voice was akin to a vow, causing Mo Qingqing's heart to tremble. Qin Wentian stepped out, as he departed. His heart was filled with an unprecedented resolution. After returning to the island in the lake, the gazes of many in the crowd coldly swept over Qin Wentian. This fellow had actually exceeded the time limit of an hour. They had no idea what he discussed with Mo Qingqing. However, even if Qin Wentian's talent was outstanding, his cultivation base was still too low. Not only that, he had no background. Wanting to woo Mo Qingqing was nothing but a fool's dream. Naturally, they wouldn't understand the relationship between Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing. Only a select few from the Pill Emperor Hall would know. Bai Fei cast a deep glance at Qin Wentian. Back then when she first met Qin Wentian in Chu, she would never have dreamt that such a day would come. After the banquet was over, everyone left one after another. Qin Wentian and the others were walking in the mansion of the Qin family when they suddenly felt a glaring light. The strong sunlight seemed to be going back in a certain direction. The gazes of the crowd shifted in a certain direction only to see that at the top of a building, a young man stood there with his hands clasped behind his back, staring at the sun in the sky. Behind him, there seemed to be a sun floating there as well, incomparably resplendent, causing the entire space around him to be exceptionally resplendent. Great solar universe art, borrowing the light of the great sun. Someone had a look of shock on his face as he whispered, that is the great solar Qin clan's most outstanding heavens chosen of this generation, Qin Wang. Number 2 on the heavenly fate ranking, Qin Wang. Qin Wentian turned his gaze over only to see that at this moment, Qin Wang seemed to have sensed something. His eyes slowly turned over as he stared in Qin Wentian's direction. Instantly, a surge of heat akin to the rays of the sun radiated forth. In Qin Wang's eyes, there were blazing suns. Such a high temperature. The crowd only felt as though the temperature of the air was rising. Many of the Heavenly Dipper sovereigns from the Ouyang aristocrat clan had expressions of shock on their faces. As expected of great solar Qin Wang. With a single glance, his mandate could penetrate through space. This was a second-level mandate. Because Hua Taishu wouldn't participate in the ranking battle this time around, Qin Wang from the Great Solar Qin clan was the one with the highest chance of obtaining the position of the top ranker. He had already been at the peak of Yuanfu for a few years now, and had long since made preparations to break through to Heavenly Dipper. Not only that, his mandates had already broken through to the second level. This Qin Wang is so powerful. Ouyang Guangsheng's eyes flashed with sharpness. In the ranking battle that happens once every 3 years, at the very last moment, those geniuses would reveal all their trump cards. Only then would you realize that they have been concealing their true combat prowess. Not only that, I have a feeling that the ranking battle this time around will be even more intense than before. I wonder if the transcendent powers will be able to monopolize the top few spots on the heavenly fate rankings, seizing the fate of Grand Xia once again. Could it be that there's really such a thing as luck? Qin Wentian didn't really believe this. Although it was said that luck was extremely important in the path of cultivation, there would always be people stronger than you. If your luck was bad, you might offend others, and if you died, you wouldn't be considered a genius. Not only that, there were many secret realms in the Tianwu continent that required luck as well. But to say that obtaining one of the top few spots on the heavenly fate rankings would allow the transcendent powers to increase their luck, Qin Wentian didn't believe it at all. Maybe it's something that exists in the netherworld, it can't be seen nor can it be touched. However, fate still exists. Back then, if it wasn't for the fact that the Venerate Heavens sect had foreseen the end of Grand Xia, how would they have dared to rebel and destroy Grand Xia? Ouyang Guangsheng casually laughed. Returning to the inn, Qin Wentian called Ouyang Guangsheng, Fan Lu, Chu Mang and Luo Huan to his courtyard. What's the matter? Chu Mang asked Qin Wentian. I have some good stuff for you guys. Qin Wentian smiled as he retrieved a porcelain bottle. This is a third-ranked limit break pill concocted by Qingcheng. It can aid those at the Yuan Fu realm in breaking through to the next level. Currently, Big Bro Chu Mang's cultivation base is at the 8th level of Yuan Fu, while Fan Lu and Ouyang Guangsheng are the same as me, at the 7th level of Yuan Fu. All of us will be participating in the ranking battle this time around, and if we consume this limit break pill, we'll have a higher chance of getting a higher ranking. Mo Qingcheng can actually concoct limit break pills. Ouyang Guangsheng had an expression of astonishment on his face. He naturally knew what limit break pills were. This type of pill was extremely valuable, and even if one wanted to purchase it at a sky-high price, they wouldn't be able to find a place to purchase it. This is something that requires the blood of a cultivator with a unique physique to be able to successfully concoct it. Ouyang Guangsheng stared at Qin Wentian as he continued, "Wentian, Mo Qingcheng treats you so well, don't let her down." Qin Wentian froze as he drew in a deep breath. Qingcheng spoke so casually, so it turned out that she had to pay such a high price to concoct this pill. "Do you think it's possible?" Qin Wentian calmed his heart as he laughed. Ouyang Guangsheng nodded his head, "That's right, she's the heaven's chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall. Not only that, she has a countenance that can topple empires. It'd be strange if you were willing to part with her." "Sister, Qingcheng only concocted 4 pills." Qin Wentian stared at Luo Huan, causing her to roll her eyes. "Who do you think your senior sister is? Work hard and fight for the top position in the heavenly fate rankings. At that time, your senior sister will be able to shine in the limelight." "How difficult is it?" Ouyang Guangsheng laughed. Although he had high hopes for Qin Wentian, it was truly too difficult to obtain the top position. Not only that, there would always be a few dark horses appearing in the ranking battle every 3 years. These dark horses were either hidden geniuses from the transcendent powers, or they were personally guided by a hidden expert, using the ranking battle to make a name for themselves in the heavenly fate rankings. The heavenly fate rankings included all Yuan Fu realm cultivators in Grand Xia. Being able to rank within the top 360 was already considered extremely dazzling. If one could rank within the top 36, their glory would be limitless, and they would be considered a heaven's chosen in the 9 continents. For those in the top 10, they would definitely be able to soar up to the heavens in the future. For those in the top 3, as long as they didn't die, they would be able to ascend to the Heavenly Dipper rankings sooner or later, becoming an extremely influential character in Grand Xia. There was only one, and that person would be the focus of everyone's attention in Grand Xia. In the entire Grand Xia, there was only one such person. Although it was only the number 1 in the Yuan Fu realm, the meaning it represented was already extremely shocking. The number 1 in the Heavenly Fate rankings would definitely be able to ascend to the Heavenly Dipper rankings in the future. The various heavens chosen all stared at that one ranking. If they wanted to obtain it, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. And precisely because of this, Hua Taishu was so dazzling. His name was the idol of countless youths. Even for Ouyang Guangsheng, Hua Taishu was his idol, his goal. Qin Wentian distributed the limit break pellets to the rest. Big Bro Chu Mang can break through to the 9th level of Yuan Fu first. As for the 3 of us, we can wait a little longer. If we can break through to the 8th level before the Heavenly Fate ranking battle, that would be even better. I can already sense that the 8th level of Yuan Fu isn't far away. For now, there's no need for limit break pellets. Ouyang Guangsheng nodded. Not only that, we've already experienced the baptism of the heavenly steel. Our mandates and state of hearts have all undergone a refinement. There shouldn't be any problems for us to use the limit break pellets to break through. I'm going to cultivate then. Chu Mang spoke. His cultivation base was the highest. As long as he stepped into the 9th level of Yuan Fu, there wouldn't be too much pressure for him to ascend to the Heavenly Fate ranking. Right. Qin Wentian nodded. Everyone dispersed, returning to their own courtyards. The inn they were staying in had been fully booked by the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The people staying in the courtyards were all from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. For a transcendent power like the Ouyang aristocrat clan, this little bit of wealth couldn't be considered anything. At this moment, at the reception area of the inn, a silhouette glanced at the signboard to confirm that he wasn't mistaken. After which, he turned his gaze towards the interior of the inn. The members of the Ouyang aristocrat clan should be staying here. Qin Wentian should be here as well. Excuse me, are the few of you from the Ouyang aristocrat clan? At this moment, 3 silhouettes walked out of the inn. The one in the lead was a beautiful maiden clad in a fiery red robe. This maiden was none other than Ouyang Ting. Ouyang Ting glanced at the person who spoke. He was a middle-aged man with a few strands of white hair. His expression was haggard, and his aura was unstable. His cultivation base wasn't very high. He was an extremely ordinary person. Ouyang Ting stared at him as she asked, "What's the matter?" Mustang didn't show any temper when he heard the arrogance in her tone. After all, he had heard of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. This maiden was dressed in luxurious robes, and her beauty was dazzling. It was only natural for her to be arrogant. "Miss Ouyang, may I ask if you know of Qin Wentian? I heard that he's staying here, and I'm looking for him." Mustang's tone was filled with humility. Upon hearing his words, Ouyang Ting's brows furrowed. Qin Wentian, it was Qin Wentian again. Whenever she heard this name, she would feel extremely annoyed. In the Ouyang aristocrat clan, this man had long since stolen her limelight. Even the members of the Ouyang aristocrat clan treated him with respect. "Who are you to him?" Ouyang Ting asked in a cold tone. "I'm his teacher." Mustang replied humbly, yet his tone was filled with caution. "Teacher?" Ouyang Ting stared at Mustang. How could that arrogant fellow have such an old man as his teacher? This place is the Ouyang aristocrat clan. How can a character like you have the qualifications to enter? Scram. Ouyang Ting spoke in a cold tone, with hints of humiliation in her tone. Mustang's countenance stiffened. Drawing in a deep breath, he replied, "Miss, I have an important matter to discuss with him. I hope Miss can accommodate me." "Fine, come beg me then." Ouyang Ting coldly laughed. "If you beg me, I might be merciful and let you in." Chapter 348. Ouyang Ting's hatred towards Qin Wentian had never dissipated. During this period of time, Qin Wentian's performance grew more and more dazzling, but this only served to stab at her heart. As a direct descendant of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, she was humiliated by Qin Wentian, yet she didn't even have the chance to seek revenge. Now that this old man claiming to be Qin Wentian's master appeared in front of her, how could she not humiliate him? Naturally, the reason why Ouyang Ting had such confidence was because of the person beside her, Duan Qingshan. No matter how outstanding Qin Wentian's performance was, his surname was still Qin. Although he was close to Qin Wentian, he had yet to join the Ouyang aristocrat clan. No matter which aspect one looked at, Duan Qingshan could completely suppress Qin Wentian. Duan Qingshan was ranked number 25 on the Heavenly Fate rankings. At least for now, he wasn't someone that Qin Wentian could compare to. In that case, she, Ouyang Ting, didn't need to worry about humiliating an old man. Mustang's countenance turned incredibly unsightly, but thinking of the importance of this matter, he could only lower his voice and bow. "Miss Ouyang, please let me in. Why can't I feel any sincerity in your request?" Ouyang Ting coldly replied. "Who do you think you are? Do you even have the qualifications to look at me as equals?" Mustang clenched his fists as his countenance turned incredibly unsightly. He didn't expect this Ouyang Ting to be so difficult to deal with. "Miss Ouyang, I have the heart to ask for your help. Miss Ouyang's status is so high, why must you make things difficult for me?" Mustang spoke. Although he came from Chu and his status was low, he couldn't stand the humiliation of a young maiden. "What? I'm making things difficult for you?" Ouyang Ting's voice turned ice cold, as a cold light flickered in her eyes. "Old fellow, Do you think it's beneath me to make things difficult for someone like you? Who do you think you are? This isn't a question of whether you want to enter or not. Apologize first. Duan Qingshan quietly watched from the side, sighing in his heart. It seemed like the incident of Ouyang Ting being humiliated by Qin Wentian was a huge blow to her. She had been suppressing her emotions, unable to let go. Since that was the case, he might as well let her vent her frustrations. Miss Ouyang, how did I offend you to make things so difficult for me? Rage flashed in Mustang's eyes. However, as the sound of his voice faded, Duan Qingshan took a step forward as a powerful pressure bore down on Mustang. Mustang inclined his head and stared at Duan Qingshan. In the blink of an eye, Mustang felt a piercing pain in his eyes. That oppressive aura caused his body to tremble involuntarily. The strength of this young man was many times stronger than him. Kneel down and apologize. Duan Qingshan calmly spoke, his tone containing an unquestionable authority. Mustang's heart trembled violently as he inclined his head to stare at Duan Qingshan. This young man exuded an extraordinary aura, and his strength was terrifying. He was undoubtedly an important character of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. However, Mustang had never imagined that before he even saw Qin Wentian, he would already be humiliated in such a manner. If I've offended you in any way, please forgive me. I shall take my leave. Mustang clenched his fists tightly as he bowed, intending to leave. I want you to kneel down and apologize. Duan Qingshan slammed out with his palm, causing Mustang to feel a violent tremor in his chest. Puff! Mustang spat out a mouthful of blood as his countenance turned pale. At this moment, he was in a dilemma. He wanted to leave, but the other party wouldn't allow him to. You can kill me, but you can't humiliate me. Mustang inclined his head and stared at Duan Qingshan and Ouyang Ting, his eyes filled with rage. He had asked them a question out of goodwill, yet he was humiliated again and again. Although the Chu country was a small place, Mustang was a teacher of the Emperor Star Academy. Normally, he would guide the juniors of the younger generation and treat the students with kindness and respect. Since when had he ever suffered such humiliation? Just because of a slight disagreement, he was forced to kneel down and apologize. Not only that, he didn't even know how he had offended the person in front of him. At this moment, members of the Ouyang aristocrat clan walked out from the inn. They heard the commotion and came over to see what was happening. They saw someone who had offended Duan Qingshan and Ouyang Ting, and was forced to apologize. However, this person seemed to have some backbone, and would rather die than submit. I can kill you with a wave of my hand, but I feel that it's beneath me to do so. Ouyang Ting coldly replied. But if you refuse to apologize, I don't mind making a move myself. I'm looking for my disciple, Qin Wentian. Why are you guys humiliating me like this? Mustang roared in rage, sweeping his gaze over the crowd. Momentarily, the expressions of the crowd froze. So this person was here to look for Qin Wentian. No wonder. Now they could understand why Ouyang Ting wanted him to kneel down and apologize. Because, she had once been forced to do so by Qin Wentian. It seemed like she wanted to take revenge for that kneeling incident. However, wasn't this person who claimed to be teacher Qin Wentian a little too weak? How could he have taught a disciple like Qin Wentian? The crowd didn't interfere. This was a grudge between Ouyang Ting and Qin Wentian. Why would they interfere? They would only be asking for trouble. Mustang swept his gaze over the crowd, as he felt a chill run down his spine. All of you, stay your hands. At this moment, a cold voice rang out. After which, two beautiful silhouettes stepped out from the inn. They were none other than Luo Huan and Jiang Ting. These two beauties got along quite well when they were together. Jiang Ting was Ouyang Guangxing's fiancée, while Luo Huan was Qin Wentian's senior apprentice sister. Initially, they had planned to go out for a walk, but who would have thought that they would encounter such a situation? What made Luo Huan even more furious was that the person being forced was actually her teacher, Mustang. Go look for Wentian. Luo Huan spoke in a low voice to Little Rascal, who was in her embrace. After which, Little Rascal transformed into a white shadow as it sprinted towards the inn. Luo Huan knew that Little Rascal was extremely intelligent and could understand human speech. This was why she did this. She ran to Mustang's side as she called out, "Teacher." "Luo Huan, why are you here as well?" Mustang stared in astonishment at the person who just appeared. Not only that, Jiang Ting, who was beside Luo Huan, had an extraordinary demeanor and was extremely beautiful. Could it be that she wasn't someone from the Ouyang aristocrat clan? Jiang Ting's beautiful eyes flickered, as though she had realized what had happened. After which, she turned and walked away. At this moment, there was no point for her to stay here. The most important thing for her to do now was to look for Ouyang Guangsheng. "Teacher, I'm with junior brother Wentian." Luo Huan pulled on Mustang's arm as she coldly stared at Duan Qingshan and Jiang Ting. "What are you guys doing to my teacher?" "It's really Qin Wentian's master." At this moment, the crowd finally confirmed that Luo Huan was Qin Wentian's senior apprentice sister. It seemed like Qin Wentian had once cultivated in a small sect. "There's no place for you to speak here. How dare you act so arrogantly in my Ouyang aristocrat clan?" "Scram!" Ouyang Ting mocked. Luo Huan's beautiful countenance stiffened as she coldly replied, "Junior brother Qin and I are guests here." "No matter what, we are still considered guests. Do you think your words represent the Ouyang aristocrat clan? What does this have to do with you? I'm telling you to scram." A long whip appeared in Jiang Ting's hands as she coldly stated. Seeing the matter getting more and more out of hand, she felt extremely uncomfortable in her heart. "If you want to spar, I can accompany you." A long whip appeared in Luo Huan's hands as she stood in front of Mustang, glaring at Jiang Ting. Duan Qingshan glanced at the increasing number of people in the surroundings, as an expression of unhappiness appeared on his face. And at the same instant, Qin Wentian, who was quietly cultivating in his courtyard, suddenly heard the sound of a babbling voice ringing out in his mind, filled with impatience. This was the voice of Little Rascal. It wanted to speak, but it didn't know how to. Opening his eyes, Qin Wentian saw Little Rascal sprinting towards him, circling in front of him. Instantly, Qin Wentian understood that something must have happened. Closing his eyes, his powerful perception instantly gushed forth, radiating outwards in all directions. In an instant, his perception enveloped the entire inn. At this moment, the inn was exceedingly quiet, as though nothing had happened. However, Ouyang Guangsheng and Jiang Ting could be seen hurriedly dashing towards the exit of the inn. Qin Wentian's perception continued to spread out, arriving outside the inn. Instantly, his brows twitched as he saw the silhouette of Mustang. "Teacher." Qin Wentian's heart trembled. Senior sister Luo Huan was standing beside Mustang, facing off against Duan Qingshan and Jiang Ting. "If you still don't move aside, kneel down together with that old bastard. Maybe this young miss will let this matter slide." Ouyang Ting's voice drifted into Qin Wentian's ears. "Don't count on Qin Wentian. This old dog offended me, and even dared to say that this young miss is deliberately making things difficult for him. Even if he's here, he'll still be useless." Rumble. A terrifying coldness gushed forth from Qin Wentian. With just a single sentence, Qin Wentian faintly understood what had happened. Since his teacher had appeared here, it should be because he was looking for him. And since Ouyang Ting knew that Mustang was his teacher, how could she not make things difficult for him? "Is that so?" A cold voice drifted down from the heavens, directly landing outside the inn. Qin Wentian, who was in the inn, soared up into the skies, causing the people outside to all raise their heads as their countenances stiffened. This was Qin Wentian's voice, but where was he? Ouyang Guangsheng and Jiang Ting were the first to arrive, but an instant later, the crowd felt a terrifying coldness emanating from them. Inclining their heads, they saw a silhouette descending like the wind, exuding a terrifying demonic aura. A sense of rage gushed forth from Qin Wentian. Evidently, Qin Wentian was enraged. His cold eyes swept over to Ouyang Ting, and in an instant, Ouyang Ting only felt a bone-piercing coldness. An intense killing intent gushed into her body, causing her to tremble uncontrollably. The look in Qin Wentian's eyes grew more and more terrifying. Ouyang Ting's heart trembled as her countenance paled. Why was she so afraid of him? She was a young miss of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, and with Duan Qingshan around, what did she have to fear? Today, she had to humiliate this old fellow. A raging wind gusted by as Qin Wentian's silhouette appeared beside Mustang. The coldness radiating from him retracted, and looking at the haggard countenance of his teacher, Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with guilt. Teacher, you've suffered. Qin Wentian walked forwards, only to see a smile flickering in Mustang's eyes. He could feel Qin Wentian's tyrannical aura, causing his heart to tremble. Even when facing Ren Qianqing and the others, he wouldn't feel such a feeling. Evidently, the most outstanding disciple he had ever taught had grown at a terrifying speed in the past few years. I'm fine. Mustang held on to Qin Wentian's hand, his heart filled with emotions. His slightly wrinkled palm patted Qin Wentian's hand as he spoke in a gratified tone, seeing that all of you are well, I can rest at ease. Teacher, let me settle the matters here first. Qin Wentian stood beside Mustang, as he turned and stared at Duan Qingshan and Ouyang Ting. His eyes gleamed with a cold light, as an intense coldness enveloped the entire space. Ouyang Ting, your actions today are unforgivable. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, his killing intent gushed forth, enveloping Ouyang Ting. A thunderous boom rang out, and the crowd only saw Ouyang Ting groaning in agony, as blood seeped out from the corners of her mouth. Chapter 349. Upon seeing the blood seeping out from the corner of Ouyang Ting's mouth, a sharp glint of light flickered in the eyes of the spectators. Qin Wentian hadn't even launched an attack yet. Was his mandate already so strong that it could directly injure Ouyang Ting? Duan Qingshan stepped forward, arriving in front of Ouyang Ting. A powerful aura gushed forth from him, sweeping towards Qin Wentian. If you attack again, even if you are a guest of the Ouyang clan, don't even think about leaving this place alive. You really overestimate yourself. Qin Wentian continued walking forward, and at the instant his foot landed on the ground, a terrifying shockwave blasted onto Ouyang Ting's body. Ouyang Ting's countenance paled as she bent her body and coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood. Her countenance was as white as paper. Inclining her head, Ouyang Ting stared at Qin Wentian with a gaze that couldn't even be described with the word anger. She wanted nothing more than to slice this person in front of her into 1,000 pieces, to wash away the humiliation she had suffered time and time again. Earlier, she had said that even if Qin Wentian arrived, it would still be useless. But now, Qin Wentian directly crushed her, injuring her. A raging wind gusted by as Duan Qingshan's silhouette disappeared from his original location. Qin Wentian's provocation, he had finally made his move. Duan Qingshan released 2 astral souls. These were his second and third astral souls, originating from the 4th heavenly layer respectively. These 2 astral souls were respectively known as the Windstorm Astral Soul and the Gigantic Leg Astral Soul. Duan Qingshan was proficient in leg techniques, and the might of his attacks were extremely terrifying. The strength of a human's legs was already terrifying, but it wasn't as nimble as one's hands. However, if one were to crazily train their legs, they would also be incomparably agile. Duan Qingshan had already cultivated his innate techniques to an extremely profound level. This time around, he released his astral souls to battle. He had to suppress Qin Wentian, and let others know that his, Duan Qingshan's, woman, wasn't someone that Qin Wentian could humiliate. This was already the 2nd time. At this moment, under Duan Qingshan's feet, another 2 illusory legs appeared. He stood in the air, as though he was standing on the ground. Duan Qingshan lifted his gigantic leg and descended from the sky, ruthlessly sweeping towards Qin Wentian. A strong pressure pressed down on Qin Wentian's body. At the same time, a strong wind whistled. That clumsy-looking gigantic leg was actually moving at a terrifying speed. At this moment, the crowd felt an irresistible pressure pressing down on them from the sky. Martial will. Qin Wendian instantly sensed the will of Duan Qingshan's mandate. Not only that, there were 3 types of mandates at the perfection boundary. The first was the first level insight of the mandate of Great Earth, gravity. The second was the first level insight of the mandate of wind speed. The third was a type of mandate that Duan Qingshan had comprehended from his gigantic leg astral soul. Hence, in that instant, the pressure that Qin Wendian was enduring was extremely terrifying. The ground beneath his feet emitted cracking sounds as it directly shattered. From this, one could see how much pressure he was enduring. As for Mustang and Luo Huan, their countenances were as pale as a sheet of paper. Peng, the ground trembled and crumbled. Qin Wendian stared at the terrifying pressure as he soared up into the skies. Lifting his palms, a terrifying draconic imprint blasted out, colliding against each other in the air. Qin Wendian and Duan Qingshan were both suspended in the air. Battle. Qin Wendian actually wanted to battle against the heavens chosen of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, Duan Qingshan. This scene caused the hearts of many to tremble. Duan Qingshan's strength couldn't be said to be weak. He was ranked number 25 on the Heavenly Fate rankings, and ranked within the top 36. Qin Wendian was only at the 7th level of Yuanfu, yet he actually dared to clash head-on with Duan Qingshan. The difference between the two of them was an entire 2 levels. Today, you shall pay the price for your actions, Duan Qingshan icily stated. Do you think you can obstruct me with just your strength? Qin Wendian laughed as he swept his gaze over. Ouyang Ting, who was about to lift her head, screamed in agony as her countenance paled. You! Duan Qingshan's rage burned. Qin Wendian actually dared to humiliate his woman in front of him. Qin Wendian's legs trembled as 2 powerful beams of light shot towards Luo Huan and Mustang. Qin Wendian coldly laughed as he punched out with his fists, shattering the 2 beams of light. Stubborn fool. The center of Qin Wendian's brows glowed with a resplendent light as it swept towards Ouyang Ting. Ouyang Ting screamed in agony as she knelt on the ground, her entire body drenched in cold sweat. Even if those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan wanted to help her, they had no way to do so. Qin Wendian's attacks were too bizarre, it was as though he could even attack with his gaze. Duan Qingshan roared in rage. With a twist of his body, both of his legs smashed towards Qin Wendian. Instantly, the afterimages of his legs filled the skies, as though wanting to engulf the entire heavens and earth. Duan Qingshan's leg techniques were incomparably exquisite, able to be fast or slow at will. They could be as swift as the wind, or as heavy as a mountain. The demonic qi radiating from Qin Wendian permeated the skies as his body transformed into that of a terrifying demonic beast. With a howl of rage akin to the roar of an ancient ape, the heavens and earth trembled as the earth crumbled. A screen of demonic qi enveloped his body, and even when the afterimages of Duan Qingshan's legs slammed into him, they were actually unable to break through his defense. Despite Duan Qingshan's strength, he actually had no way to injure Qin Wendian. From this, one could see how terrifying his demonic physique was. However, how could Duan Qingshan be an ordinary person? His body was like a tempest as a gigantic foot stomped down on the heavens and earth, leaving a gigantic footprint in the air. This gigantic foot stomped towards Qin Wendian's head, as though it wanted to crush Qin Wendian into pieces. This sort of pressure was too terrifying. Qin Wendian clenched his fists tightly as a terrifying glint of sharpness flickered in his eyes. In that case, he would let Duan Qingshan experience the might of the second-level mandate of force that he had comprehended. His fist blasted out with indomitable might, blasting towards Duan Qingshan's gigantic foot. It was akin to an insignificant ant trying to shake a gigantic elephant. How foolish and ignorant, like an ant trying to shake a tree. How could an ordinary fist collide with Duan Qingshan's terrifying sure-kill kick? Although that fist seemed to be imbued with Qin Wentian's immense strength, the feeling it gave off was that it could be easily crushed into pieces. The insignificant fist collided with the incomparably terrifying astral leg, and indeed, the spectators only saw Qin Wentian's body being flung through the air as he groaned in agony as he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. The strength contained in that kick was incomparable. Even Qin Wentian could feel his internal organs trembling violently from the impact. Wiping away the blood at the corners of his mouth, he stared coldly at Duan Qingshan, only to see Duan Qingshan calmly standing there. In that instant earlier, he felt a terrifying surge of energy gushing into his body, wanting to destroy his life force. Blood gushed up to his throat, but Duan Qingshan's countenance sank as he forcefully suppressed the blood in his mouth. After which, he swallowed it back down. His internal organs were still trembling from the impact, and he circulated the energy in his body to stabilize his blood flow, causing his originally pale countenance to regain some color. Hence, nobody knew the true meaning of this collision. In the end, Qin Wentian was still inferior to Duan Qingshan. He was blasted to the point of coughing out blood, but despite having a cultivation base at the 7th level of Yuanfu, he could still be proud of his combat prowess. Qin Wentian coldly laughed in his heart when he saw the expression on Duan Qingshan's face. He turned his gaze onto Ouyang Ting as a demonic light flickered in the center of his brows. Ouyang Ting inclined her head, coldly staring at Qin Wentian. However, she could feel a terrifying killing intent boring down on her, causing her body to tremble involuntarily. She hurriedly retreated, hiding behind the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. She was afraid, terrified. Qin Wentian stepped forward, but at this moment, a voice drifted over, "Enough." A few Heavenly Dipper sovereigns from the Ouyang aristocrat clan appeared. They glanced at the surroundings, they were well aware of what happened here. Ouyang Ting has already received her punishment. Enough. An old man stared at Qin Wentian as he calmly stated. It's no longer suitable for her to remain in the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Ouyang Quangsheng stepped forward as he stated. I'm already engaged to Ouyang Ting. Ouyang Quangsheng, what do you mean by this? Duan Qingshan retorted, only to see the old man glancing at the others as he continued, this matter will be discussed later. Let's end it here today. After speaking, he turned his gaze onto Ouyang Ting as he commanded, let's return. At this moment, Ouyang Ting no longer had the slightest bit of anger in her heart. Duan Qingshan had actually failed to obstruct Qin Wentian from dealing with her, causing her to be humiliated once again. See you at the Heavenly Fate rankings. Duan Qingshan's eyes flickered with killing intent as he stared at Qin Wentian. You better pray that you don't meet me in the ranking battle. If not, Duan Qingshan's name will no longer appear on the Heavenly Fate rankings. I'm a man of my words. Qin Wentian's voice was ice cold, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble. This fellow was truly arrogant enough, daring to say that he wanted to kill Duan Qingshan. Me too. Duan Qingshan replied as he entered the inn. The crowd dispersed, leaving behind only Ouyang Quangsheng, Jiang Ting, and a few others. Ouyang, I'm leaving. Qin Wentian stared at Ouyang Quangsheng as he calmly spoke. He knew that Ouyang Ting was someone from the Ouyang aristocrat clan, while he, Qin Wentian, was an outsider. How could the Ouyang aristocrat clan tolerate him acting against Ouyang Ting, even if he was Ouyang Quangsheng's friend? I understand. Ouyang Quangsheng nodded his head as he patted Qin Wentian on his shoulder. You have always been a brother of mine, this has nothing to do with the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Qin Wentian nodded his head, Ouyang, let's work hard together. Let's grow stronger as soon as possible and control the Ouyang aristocrat clan. At that time, when I visit the Ouyang aristocrat clan as a guest, I won't need to bow down to anyone. When I control the Ouyang aristocrat clan, would I still be able to invite you? Ouyang Quangsheng joked. The relationship between the two of them naturally wouldn't be affected by the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The reason why Qin Wentian wanted to leave was because this place belonged to the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Once he left, if he met Ouyang Ting and Duan Qingshan again, he wouldn't be the slightest bit courteous to them. He would definitely fulfill his promise in the ranking battle, and if they met again, he would definitely kill Duan Qingshan. Ouyang Quansheng also understood this point. There was no need for the two of them to speak. Oi! At this moment, a voice drifted over from afar. Qin Wendian shifted his gaze over, only to see two silhouettes appearing in the distance, staring in his direction. Upon seeing the two of them, a smile appeared in Qin Wendian's eyes. The top 3 rankers of the Heavenly Fate rankings, are you ready? The female of the two silhouettes had a pure and innocent look on her face as she smiled in Qin Wendian's direction. Chapter 350. A warm smile could be seen on Qin Wendian's face. Those who knew that he would definitely contend for the top 3 positions were naturally from the White Deer Institute. Long time no see. Qin Wendian stared at Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi. It had been a year, yet the two of them didn't seem to have changed much. The only difference was that Bailu Yi's strength had grown stronger. Seems like you've been doing well. Bailu Jing laughed as he glanced at the people standing beside Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian landed on the ground and walked to Mustang's side. Teacher, let me introduce you. This is Ouyang Quansheng from the Ouyang aristocrat clan, and his fiancée Jiang Ting. These two are Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi from the White Deer Institute in the Moon Continent. A gratified expression flashed in Mustang's eyes. Upon seeing his friends, Qin Wendian's first thought was that he was afraid that he would neglect his teacher. Although Qin Wendian's strength had already far surpassed his, it was still a fact that Qin Wendian's strength far surpassed his own. Also, just by looking at the friends around Qin Wendian, one could already tell that the current Qin Wendian was no longer the young man from Chu. He already had his own piece of heaven and earth, and was currently striding towards an even greater height. The others also greeted Mustang, causing him to nod his head in approval. Although these people were all juniors, none of them were weaker than him. Even the lazy Fan Lu, the astral energy fluctuations radiating from him were stronger than his. A new generation replacing the old. Maybe, this is the scene before our eyes. Mustang sighed, yet he was extremely happy. Only the two of you came. Qin Wendian glanced at Bailu Yi. Of course not, we still have to watch the ranking battle of a certain someone. Don't forget, Big Brother will be participating as well. Bailu Yi smiled. There are quite a few people from the White Deer Institute, why don't you come with us first? Others naturally didn't understand the meaning of Bailu Yi's words, but Qin Wendian understood. His ranking this time around would determine whether or not he would be able to control the White Deer Institute. Even if Bailu Jing wasn't present, the people from the White Deer Institute would still be here to watch the ranking battle. Okay. Qin Wendian calmly agreed. The White Deer Institute was different from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The Ouyang aristocrat clan was too complicated, and other than being friends with Ouyang Quansheng, there was no one else he could influence. Naturally, the White Deer Institute was closer to him. Not only that, with the help of Fairy Qingmei, even if he didn't obtain the top 3 rankers of the Heavenly Fate rankings, the White Deer Institute would still maintain a close relationship with him. Of course, if he did that, then he would probably be unable to take full control of White Deer Academy. After bidding farewell to Ouyang Quansheng, Qin Wendian and the rest departed together with Bailu Yi. What cultivation level are you at now? Bailu Yi's beautiful eyes stared curiously at Qin Wendian. 7th level of Yuanfu, I should be able to break through to the 8th level by the time the ranking battle begins. Qin Wendian replied. With the limit break pellet, even if he didn't break through to the 8th level, he could still use it to boost his cultivation base. Only then would he have a higher chance of becoming one of the top 3 rankers of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Not only that, Qin Wendian could faintly sense that the intensity of the ranking battle this time around would far surpass his imagination. He had to raise his strength as much as he could in order to increase his chances. You're still as powerful as ever. Bai Lu blinked her eyes at Qin Wentian, a look of pleasant surprise could be seen in her eyes. Before she met Qin Wentian, she could be considered an influential figure in her clan, and had always felt that her talent was outstanding. But ever since Qin Wentian entered her academy, she felt that she was too ordinary. Sometimes, when she thought about it, should she blame this fellow for shattering her confidence? She still remembered that when Qin Wentian left the Moon Continent, he had killed Hua Xiaoyun and captured Shu Wanyu. How strong would his combat prowess be when he stepped into the 8th level of Yuanfu? Brother, you're about to be surpassed. Bai Lu laughed. Bai Lu Jing glanced at Bai Lu as he patted her on the shoulder. Your brother is about to be surpassed, why are you so happy? Staring at the smile that was on Bai Lu Jing's face, Bai Lu ruthlessly punched him in the face. The White Deer Institute was the same as the Ouyang aristocrat clan, they had also booked an entire inn. Those from the White Deer Institute were all acquainted with Qin Wentian, and they would nod their heads in greeting when they saw him. After all, in name, Qin Wentian had the authority to govern them. Regardless of whether they were willing to be controlled by Qin Wentian or not, they would still give Qin Wentian the respect he deserved. But of course, to Qin Wentian, there was no meaning to it. Bai Lu swiftly arranged the lodgings for Qin Wentian and the others. Qin Wentian and Mustang were both alone in a courtyard. Qin Wentian knew that Mustang had something to say to him, but Mustang didn't say anything on the way there, so he naturally didn't ask. Teacher, why did you come to Ginkgo? At this moment, only Qin Wentian and Mustang were present. Qin Wentian asked. Mustang's only wish was to stay in the Emperor Star Academy and guide the students in peace. If it wasn't for some special reason, he wouldn't have traveled thousands of miles to Ginkgo to spectate the ranking battle. Not only that, Mustang, who had lived in Chu for so long, wouldn't know about the ranking battle at all. 9 Mystical Palace. Mustang's countenance sank as he stared at Qin Wentian. Headmaster, something happened. Qin Wentian's countenance instantly turned cold. These few years, there was one thing he couldn't rest easy about, and that was Senior Dai, who was captured by the 9 Mystical Palace. To Qin Wentian, Dai was his benefactor, and Dai's capture was also related to him. He had always planned to capture a disciple from the 9 Mystical Palace during the ranking battle, in order to gather information about Dai's situation. But who would have thought that the 9 Mystical Palace would make a move first? Luo Tianya from the 9 Mystical Palace came to the Emperor's Star Academy and sought me out. He asked me about your whereabouts, but I didn't know. Hence, he brought me along with him, and after some investigation, they finally found this Ginkgo. Initially, they wanted to directly capture you, but because you were together with those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan, they didn't want to alarm the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Hence, they sent me to look for you. The 9 Mystical Palace wanted Qin Wentian to deliver himself to their doorstep. If Qin Wentian didn't comply, Dai and the Emperor's Star Academy would still be under the control of the 9 Mystical Palace. If they really wanted to destroy the Emperor's Star Academy, they could use some underhanded methods to do so. Qin Wentian was also very clear that although he had killed Luo Qianqiu in the past, that was still a grudge between him and Luo Tianya. At that time, with Ouyang Guangxing and Qian Mengyu around, the 9 Mystical Palace wouldn't dare to offend these two major powers just because of Luo Qianqiu's death. But now, things were different. He didn't know what methods the 9 Mystical Palace used, but they had already obtained the secret of the Azure Emperor token from Dai. The 9 Mystical Palace had been looking for Qin Wentian for the sake of the Azure Emperor token. As long as they obtained the Azure Emperor token, they could easily find someone to impersonate as the successor of the Azure Emperor. In addition to the 9 Mystical Palace's secret support, they would be able to control the power of the Azure Emperor. This temptation was simply too great. Senior Dai must have suffered a lot of torture for so many years to protect this secret. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. No wonder the 9 Mystical Palace didn't dare to disturb the Ouyang aristocrat clan. This secret, the 9 Mystical Palace naturally didn't want any other powers to know about it. Teacher, I can't walk into their trap. Qin Wentian stared at Mustang as he spoke. Mustang's eyes flashed with agony. He naturally understood this point, but now, his heart was extremely conflicted, he didn't know what he should do. If I go to the 9 mystical palace, I will die for sure. And after that, Senior Dai and teacher would also be killed by them. Qin Wendian was very clear that once the 9 mystical palace obtained the Azure Emperor token, the first thing they would do would be to silence them. What should we do? Mustang stared at Qin Wendian as he asked. Qin Wendian furrowed his brows, as an expression of contemplation appeared on his face. Currently, there was only one power that could help him. Fairy Qingmei, Celestial Lake Palace. Qin Wendian murmured. He was starting to miss that fairy-like maiden. She had always been silently protecting him, but ever since the incident in the Moon Continent, he hadn't seen Qin again. However, at this moment, Qin Wendian's countenance abruptly stiffened as he coldly asked, "Who?" As the sound of his voice faded, a silhouette drifted down from the air. That silhouette was as beautiful as ever, as though it didn't belong to the mortal world. Her countenance would never change, and nobody knew what she was thinking. "I'm here." Qing's melodious voice rang out, waking Qin Wendian from his stupor. Staring at that fairy-like silhouette, a strange expression appeared on Qin Wendian's face. How could this be? Qing had always been by his side. With his current perception, how could he not sense her presence? Qing, when did you get here? Qin Wendian was taken aback. I've always been here. You didn't encounter any life-threatening situations. Qing replied. She had always remembered Fairy Qingmei's words. As long as Qin Wendian didn't die, there was no need for her to appear. Even if he encountered any life-threatening situations, even if he was injured, it was up to him. Then why are you here now? Qin Wendian smiled as he asked. Upon seeing Qing, the heavy pressure in his heart seemed to lighten somewhat. Weren't you the one who called for me? Qing stared at Qin Wendian, causing Qin Wendian to be taken aback. After which, a bitter smile appeared on his face as he asked, how did you hide yourself? Why couldn't I sense your presence? Qin Wendian stared at Qing. In front of Qing, he felt that he had no secrets at all. Qing quietly stared at him, not saying a word. However, upon seeing that otherworldly countenance, Qin Wendian couldn't bring himself to be angry. He could only smile bitterly. Qing, I have something I need the help of the Celestial Lake Palace. It's extremely important. Qin Wendian spoke. Tell me, I'll help you pass the message to the Celestial Lake Palace. Qing replied in a light voice. Help me pass the message to the Celestial Lake Palace. Now that the 9 Mystical Palace knows about the Azure Emperor, they want to use the safety of Dai and the Emperor Star Academy to threaten me. I need the Celestial Lake Palace to temporarily not act blindly without thinking. Qin Wendian believed that as long as Qing passed the message to the Celestial Lake Palace, the Celestial Lake Palace would understand his intentions. This matter wasn't difficult. The Celestial Lake Palace only needed to control a few important figures from the 9 Mystical Palace to temporarily keep them in check. Okay, I'll get them to help you with this matter. Qing nodded her head, her tone was filled with certainty. This caused Qin Wendian to be pleasantly surprised. Looking at Qing, he said, thank you, Qing, This time around, in the Heavenly Fate rankings, you must obtain a good ranking. These are the words of Master. Qing gazed at Qin Wendian as her beautiful eyes flickered. After which, she added in a melodious voice, I also hope that you will obtain a good ranking. Qin Wendian laughed, heavily nodding his head. Okay, I promise you, I definitely will. Qing lightly nodded her head, as her silhouette flickered, vanishing from sight. This caused Qin Wendian to smile bitterly as he shook his head. Qing was always like this, just like a celestial fairy. At this moment, Mustang was also dumbfounded. This fellow, why did he have so many breathtaking beauties by his side? Bai Lu Yi's pure and innocent countenance, Mo Qingcheng, the #1 beauty in Chu, and now, the woman who had just appeared gave him a feeling that he was looking at beauties from a painting. Master, I have to cultivate well and make my final preparations for the ranking battle. Qin Wentian smiled at Mustang. With Qing Er's words, he believed that she would definitely be able to do it. As for the matter regarding the 9 mystical palace, he would think of a solution after the ranking battle. Chapter 351. More and more people gathered in Ginkgo, the elites of Grand Xia from all over the Grand Xia Empire. The entire city was bustling with activity, and discussions about the ranking battle could be heard in every single inn in Ginkgo. There were only 3 days left before the start of the pilgrimage period. This indicated that the battle for the heavenly fate rankings would truly begin 3 days later. Currently, in the airspace above Ginkgo, demonic beasts circled the skies as experts soared through the air. Just by raising their heads, they would be able to see the silhouettes of experts flying through the air. Outside of the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, there were countless silhouettes gathered. They stared at the ancient kingdom in front of them, the towering pillars towering into the heavens. 99 flights of stairs made from azure dragon jadestone formed the path of pilgrimage, exuding a boundless majesty. This flight of stairs was the entrance to the ancient kingdom, the place of pilgrimage. On the vast land, there were many young elites. Their hearts were filled with anticipation as they stared at the ancient path of pilgrimage, wanting to make a name for themselves in a single battle. How many years of painstaking cultivation was all for the sake of today's battle? If they could make a name for themselves and step into the heavenly fate rankings, there would be no need to worry about their future. The path laid out before them would be much smoother compared to cultivating alone. The various transcendent powers would all invite them to join them, and would focus on nurturing them. The moment they stepped into the transcendent powers, they would instantly become the core of the core. Naturally, there were also those who wanted to compete against the geniuses of the world, tempering themselves. Only by doing so would they be able to sweep away the dark clouds and ascend to the heavens. Who could obstruct them? It's said that within the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, there is the fate of the emperor. If one is able to display a dazzling performance in the ranking battle, their fate would change drastically, a young man and woman murmured in a low voice, filled with anticipation. Naturally, there were also those who came with ulterior motives. For example, Shu Wanyu from the Moon continent. She stood alone in a corner, her countenance filled with coldness, causing the people in the surroundings to not dare to approach her. Back then, she was once engaged to Yang Fan. Her talent was extraordinary, and she would eventually be married into the star-seizing manor. However, after she was captured by Qin Wentian, the star-seizing manor started to doubt her innocence, and gradually, they grew distant. In fact, she could even sense that Yang Fan's attitude towards her had changed. Evidently, he was unhappy with the fact that she was a captive. In a fit of anger, Shu Wanyu broke up with Yang Fan and took the initiative to cancel the engagement. However, she still couldn't breathe normally today. She wanted to find the person who had kidnapped her back then, Qin Wentian, to settle the debt. However, she didn't know if that crafty fellow, Qin Wentian, would come to Ginkgo to spectate the ranking battle. Shu Wanyu's gaze swept over the surroundings, only to see 2 silhouettes standing not far away from her. One was an old man, one was a young man, both exuding an extraordinary aura. The old man then asked, Di Feng, are you prepared for the heavenly fate rankings? Di Feng stared at the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. His chest was filled with hot blood, and an incomparably strong self-confidence radiated from him. A confident smile appeared on his handsome face as he replied in a low voice, I'm here to fight for the top position. You've been in seclusion for so many years, all for this opportunity to shake Grand Xia. The heavenly fate rankings has an extraordinary meaning to you. If you can obtain it, your position would be unshakable, and in the future, you would be able to command the hidden faction. Let them know who you really are, the old man murmured, as he calmly continued, but this time around, you must remember not to neglect your opponents. Chen Wang, Shirpatian, they have yet to break through to Heavenly Dipper, and will be your greatest competitors. Di Feng nodded his head lightly, yet the self-confidence radiating from him was unshakable. Come again 3 days later. The old man faintly spoke. After which, he turned and departed together with Di Feng, causing Shu Ruanyu's beautiful eyes to flicker with a strange light. What an arrogant tone, wanting to fight for the top position. Not only that, the old man seemed to be extremely confident in himself, as though only Chen Wang and Shirpatian were his opponents. Among the top few rankers on the Heavenly Fate rankings, the first ranker, Hua Taishu, and the fourth ranker, Jing Wu, had already broken through to Heavenly Dipper. In that case, the strongest among them should be Chen Wang, Shirpatian, and Emperor Azure. Could it be that this young man didn't even care about Emperor Azure? What she didn't know was that Di Feng and Emperor Azure were the same person, and were also the most mysterious ranker on the Heavenly Fate rankings. Shu Ruanyu turned her gaze over, as her beautiful eyes froze. She saw yet another strange scene. The young man with Di Feng who was preparing to leave also halted his steps, as he glanced at the person beside him in bewilderment. Beside him, 2 strange silhouettes could be seen. One of them was a maiden clad in tattered robes, her body covered in dust. Her hair was dry, and had already turned yellow. Only her eyes were extremely clear, and when she turned her head back to glance at the person behind her, her eyes were filled with worry. This maiden should be very young, and the person behind her was being dragged along by her. She used wood and bamboo to weave a tattered bamboo bed, dragging it forward. On the bamboo bed, there was also a figure clad in tattered robes, sitting there like a beggar. His hair was disheveled, and black chi could be seen on his face, as though he would die at any moment. However, the aura he exuded was so cold that it caused those who passed by him to involuntarily step away from him. A cripple like him actually came to spectate the ranking battle. Some passers-by had expressions of disgust on their faces as they mocked. The maiden clad in tattered robes inclined her head, glaring at the person who spoke. You are not allowed to say such things about my Feng Gij, he is not a cripple. This beggar lass is pretty amusing. Feng Gij. Little lass, how old are you? You already have a lover. The mockery in the eyes of the passers-by grew even more intense. The young man sitting on the bamboo bed acted as though nothing had happened, he was still as quiet as ever, not even his eyelids twitching. Scram! The maiden cursed in a low voice when she saw the passers-by blocking her path. Yo, your temper is so bad. Although you are a little dirty, you still look pretty fresh. If you take a bath, you might even be a little beauty. Do you want to follow me back to help you wash your body? The passers-by laughed, as did the 2 beside him, causing the maiden to tremble in anger. At this moment, the eyelids of the young man sitting on the bamboo bed twitched as he lifted his head to glance at them. The passers-by cursed again, but at this moment, their bodies suddenly convulsed violently as their glabella turned black. After which, all of them softly slumped to the ground. Such a scene caused the spectators to tremble involuntarily. What was going on? There wasn't the slightest bit of vitality in those people. They died in an instant, their countenances completely black. Shu Ruanyu also had an expression of shock on her face when she saw this scene. The young man on the bamboo bed had only lifted his eyelids slightly, and those people had already died. Feng Gij, can you not be like this? The maiden turned her head back when she saw this scene. Her heart softened as she stared at the young man pitifully. I've arrived, you can leave now. The young man finally spoke. His voice was exceptionally cold, so cold that it could seep into the bones of those who heard it. I'm not leaving, you are not allowed to make me leave. The maiden spoke in an aggrieved tone. Scram! The young man inclined his head, a terrifying light flashed in his eyes as he stared at the maiden. However, the maiden had no fear as she replied, no matter what you become, I will always love you. Even if you kill me, I won't leave. The eyelids of the young man twitched, but his eyes were as cold as ever. Nobody knew what he was thinking in his heart. Poison, this person is using poison. He must have cultivated in a poison art. At this moment, someone exclaimed in shock. The faces of those who died were so black that they didn't even look human anymore. This was a clear sign that they had been poisoned. When they looked at the young man again, there was no longer any mockery or contempt in his eyes. There was only fear in his eyes. Could it be him? A name suddenly appeared in Shu Wanyu's mind, causing her heart to involuntarily tremble. Mu Feng was a character ranked number 7 on the Heavenly Fate rankings. It was rumored that he was the youngest of the top 10 rankers, and his attainments in the field of poison had already reached the pinnacle of perfection. His talent was so high that no one didn't fear him, and he was also the disciple of the poison monarch of Grand Xia. There were many rumors about Mu Feng. Some said that although Mu Feng was proficient in the Tao of poison, he was extremely loyal to his friends. His character was forthright and straightforward, and he loved to make friends. Sometimes, when the Poison King ordered him to kill people to cultivate his poison arts, he dared to disobey. If it wasn't for the fact that the Poison King saw his talent, he would have long since killed him. The Poison King was truly ruthless. Not only that, it was said that although Mu Feng was proficient in the Tao of poison, he was also a suave and elegant character. However, the person in front of them was extremely sinister and terrifying. Not only that, he was actually dragged here by a maiden. This didn't seem like Mu Feng's style at all. And at this moment, Shu Wanyu's gaze suddenly froze. She stared in the direction of the voice as her beautiful eyes involuntarily narrowed. It's him, that fellow has appeared. Qin Wentian, and that damnable fatty, the fatty who always threatened her and wanted to take off her clothes. Qin Wentian and the rest surveyed the ancient kingdom in front of them. In his heart, Qin Wentian couldn't help but be shocked. Indeed, this place was very similar to the one in his memories. In the memories left behind by his father, he had passed by this place, the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. At this moment, he seemed to have sensed something. His gaze shifted in a certain direction, and when he saw Shu Wanyu, a strange light involuntarily flashed in his eyes. What a coincidence, this woman actually came here as well. And after a year of not seeing her, Shu Wanyu had already broken through to the 9th level of Yuanfu. At this moment, Qin Wentian felt another pair of eyes staring at him. Shifting his gaze over, he saw that the strange person was none other than Mu Feng, who was sitting on the bamboo bed. Mu Feng's gaze was filled with boundless venom as he stared at Qin Wentian, as though he wanted to dismember Qin Wentian into a million pieces. That kind of venom caused Qin Wentian to feel his entire body turning cold, as though a chill was seeping into his bones. What's going on? Qin Wentian furrowed his brows. He didn't recognize this person, this should be the first time he met him. Why was this person staring at him with such a venomous gaze? Be careful, Qin Wentian warned in a low voice. Those beside him also noticed Mu Feng's presence. Qin Wentian. A voice that seemed to originate from the depths of hell drifted over, causing Qin Wentian to freeze. Did this person really know him? Not only that, other than the coldness in Mu Feng's eyes, there was also a hint of bloodlust in them. You are? Qin Wentian asked in bewilderment. You actually pretended not to know me? Ridiculous, ridiculous. Mu Feng's killing intent towered up into the skies, as a terrifying black qi gushed forth from him. Qin Wentian only felt his entire body turning cold as a terrifying venomous intent seeped into his body. Chapter 352. Qin Wentian stared at Mu Feng, he could clearly feel the rage in Mu Feng's eyes. Sir, is there a misunderstanding? I really don't know you, Qin Wentian continued. In his memories, there was no such person in front of him. Mu Feng's body was shrouded in a layer of mist. He stared at Qin Wentian and the rest as killing intent flickered in his eyes. Leave. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. In that instant, he felt an indescribable sense of discomfort. It was as though a surge of poison qi had seeped into his body, corroding his insides. The person in front of him was a poison expert, and an extremely terrifying one at that. Bai Lu Yi's countenance instantly turned black. This scene caused a terrifying light to flash in Bai Lu Jing's eyes. Stay your hand. Qin Wendian glanced at Bai Lu Yi, as an intense rage erupted in his heart. He didn't recognize this person, but he knew that this person was extremely ruthless and had already threatened their lives. In the Grand Xia Empire, poison cultivators had to be extremely vigilant. Even if their cultivation base was lower than yours, the slightest mistake could result in death in their hands. The name of the poison monarch was a taboo in Grand Xia. Even those transcendent powers wouldn't dare to antagonize him. In the history of Grand Xia, the poison monarch was the culprit. It was said that when he was young, the poison monarch hailed from a powerful clan. He was handsome and worked hard in his cultivation, but his fiancée was kidnapped and brutally murdered. When the poison monarch's clan went to seek justice, they were almost annihilated instead. After that, the poison monarch appeared many times to poison the members of his clan, causing a storm every time he appeared. Finally, the last time the poison monarch appeared, his poison arts had already reached the grand completion level. In a fit of rage, he turned a clan of over 10,000 people into a pile of corpses in a single night, leaving not a single survivor. This incident shocked the entire Grand Xia, and from then on, the poison monarch became a taboo. Nobody dared to antagonize him. Anyone who faced a poison expert would have to be extremely cautious, or the consequences would be dire. Qin Wendian's eyes grew even colder when he saw Bai Lu Yi's countenance turning black. With a clench of his fist, the maiden beside Mu Feng screamed in agony as a raging wind kicked up. Qin Wendian coldly stated, "If you continue, I will kill her." Mu Feng coldly glanced at the girl beside him. "I told you to scram." Then, he looked at Qin Wendian and said, "Okay, I'll only kill you. All of you, retreat." Qin Wendian spoke to the people around him, causing them to open up a path for him. Only Mu Feng remained seated on the bamboo bed, facing off against Qin Wendian. A gust of black wind swept past. Qin Wendian held his breath. His blood seemed to be roaring uncontrollably. Will of blood. Qin Wendian glanced at the other party. This person was very strong. Mu Feng's body directly floated up into the air. His left hand sliced across his right palm, causing fresh blood to flow out. It was actually black blood. The black wind whistled. Mu Feng's body directly drifted towards Qin Wendian, his speed as quick as lightning. Qin Wendian felt a piercing pain in his eyes, as though his skin was about to corrode. His entire body felt extremely uncomfortable, extremely unbearable. This was what a poison expert was like. It was extremely dangerous. The blood in Qin Wendian's body seethed as demonic qi towered up into the skies. His body was clad in demonic armor, and upon seeing Mu Feng rushing towards him, he blasted out with his palms. The roars of dragons echoed out as a fearsome dragon imprint containing a towering amount of power blasted towards Mu Feng. Mu Feng's eyes were ice cold as he spat out a mouthful of blood at Qin Wendian. The black blood flowed with the wind, flying towards Qin Wendian. His body bore the brunt of the terrifying might as he arrived beside Qin Wendian. His palms blasted out, colliding head-on with Qin Wendian's explosive might. Qin Wendian retreated. It was extremely rare for him to be forced to retreat in a contest of strength. But this time around, he chose to retreat. His opponent's entire body was covered in poison. He had no choice but to be cautious. However, Mu Feng had comprehended the mandate of wind and had already reached the perfection boundary of the first level. How fast was his speed? A ruthless light flashed in Qin Wendian's eyes when he saw this. The divine energy in his Yuanfu rumbled madly, bringing with it a terrifying bloodline as it gushed towards his arm. Abruptly, Qin Wendian didn't retreat but advanced instead. With a fearsome might, he blasted out a terrifying palm imprint towards Mu Feng. His palm turned golden in color, resembling the sharp claws of a golden dragon, indestructible. Peng! Terrifying energies collided as both palms collided. Mu Feng spat out a mouthful of blood towards Qin Wentian, while Qin Wentian retreated explosively. Droplets of black blood seeped into his palm, and in an instant, Qin Wentian felt his arm turning numb. A terrifying corrosive might frenziedly corroded his arm, extending towards his entire body. In the blink of an eye, Qin Wentian's blood turned black. His internal organs, meridians, and yuanfu were all corroded, and his countenance turned as black as ink. Qin Wentian's countenance drastically changed. He directly sat on the ground as he stared in shock at Mu Feng. Mu Feng wasn't in a good state either. How terrifying was the might of Qin Wentian's attack. His entire arm was shattered, and even his internal organs were destroyed. His entire person was curled up into a ball on the ground, as fresh blood dyed the ground red. Feng Gij. The girl beside him was so frightened that tears streamed down her face. She helped Mu Feng up as her body trembled. Wentian. Bai Lu Yi and the rest also rushed to Qin Wentian's side. Their countenances were all extremely unsightly to behold. He's Mu Feng, ranked number 7 on the Heavenly Fate rankings. His combat prowess might be weaker, but his poison arts are extremely terrifying. Bai Lu Jing's countenance was filled with anxiety as he continued, Wentian has been poisoned by blood. Black qi circulated around Qin Wentian's body as he stared at Mu Feng. How could the poison in that blood be so terrifying? If such a powerful poison technique struck a Heavenly Dipper sovereign, that Heavenly Dipper sovereign would suffer the same fate as him. I have no enmity with you, why are you doing this? Qin Wentian stared fixedly at Mu Feng. Mu Feng should know what the consequences would be if he were to receive this attack head-on. Not only that, his friends were all here, and if Mu Feng poisoned Qin Wentian to death, Mu Feng would die as well. Qin Wentian couldn't understand the deep hatred between them. No enmity. Why are you doing this? Qin Wentian, I've always treated you like a brother. You bastard, not only did you humiliate my younger sister, you even cruelly killed my parents. If I don't kill you, how can I have the face to continue living in this world? Mu Feng's eyes were filled with hatred as he glared at Qin Wentian. Even at this moment, his anger still couldn't be quelled. He couldn't forget the look of humiliation in his eyes when he saw his younger sister dying naked in their home. He couldn't forget the tragic deaths of his family members. He had always treated Qin Wentian like a brother, yet he had to suffer such a fate. How laughable was it that he had once said that he wanted to participate in the ranking battle together with Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold. He had never done such a thing, yet Mu Feng's decisiveness wasn't a lie. How laughable, because of something he didn't even know, the two of them had fought so fiercely. I'll only say one thing, I don't even know who you are. I have no idea what you're talking about. Qin Wentian closed his eyes. His countenance was still as black as before, and even his entire body was shrouded in black qi. It was as though he was on the brink of death. It was unknown when Qing appeared. Her countenance was pale as she walked to the side of Qin Wentian. She squatted down as she stared at Qin Wentian. I don't know. Qing stared at Qin Wentian, as an expression of self-blame appeared on her face. She didn't know that the collision with Qin Wentian would cause Qin Wentian to be on the brink of death. I don't blame you. Qin Wentian opened his eyes, squeezing out a smile before closing them once more. At this moment, Fan Lu and Chu Mang howled in rage. Both of them took out their bows and aimed their arrows at Mu Feng, their killing intent terrifying to the extreme. Die! Fan Li's eyes reddened. Don't! The maiden beside Mu Feng stood in front of him, using both her hands to protect him. She stared at Fan Lu and Chu Mang, I beg of you, please don't. Scram! Mu Feng roared in a low voice. However, the maiden shook her head repeatedly as tears streamed down her cheeks. Even if he dies, I want him to die knowing the truth. Fan Lu stared at Mu Feng, who was standing behind the maiden, as he asked, You said that my brother humiliated and killed your clan members. And where is your clan located at? Mu Feng coldly stared at Fan Lu. He didn't reply. However, the maiden continued, half a year ago, that incident happened outside the spirit continent. Because of that incident, Feng Gij suffered from a poison attack in his heart, causing him to be heavily injured. After which, he chose to cultivate an even more ruthless poison art, all for the sake of revenge. Your friend is so cruel, yet you guys still want to help him. Bullshit, us brothers have been cultivating in the unmatched realm of the Azure continent for half a year now. Everyone in the unmatched realm knows about this, and after that, we challenged the heavenly steel platform under the watchful eyes of everyone in the Azure continent before coming to Ginkgo. When did we ever go to the spirit continent? You're simply slandering us. Fan Lu roared in rage. Scram, he has to die. If not, I will kill you as well. Nonsense. Chu Mang was so angry that his entire body was trembling. Upon hearing their words, the maiden's countenance paled. Impossible. I can testify as well. Qing slowly walked over. Staring at that fairy-like silhouette, the maiden had a feeling that Mu Feng wouldn't lie. Not to mention, there was no need for him to lie at this moment. How can this be? I've known him for so many days, how can I mistake him for someone else? Mu Feng coughed out another mouthful of blood. After the poison attacked his heart, he cultivated a terrifying poison art, almost causing him to die from the poison. He fused the poison into his blood, using all of his strength to protect it, not daring to waste even the slightest bit. All the way here, it was the maiden in front of him who had dragged him here. All he wanted to do was to poison Qin Wentian to death. How could he be mistaken? At this moment, Qin Wentian was also speechless. Given how crazy Mu Feng was, there was no way he would lie. In that case, there was only one possibility. Someone was impersonating him, intentionally framing him, causing Mu Feng to travel thousands of miles just to poison him. Only to see that within Qin Wentian's body, the terrifying poison had already invaded the candlelight, yet it had no way to extinguish it. With an intention of his will, Qin Wentian circulated the golden threads around the candlelight, and as expected, the terrifying poison actually dissipated into nothingness, causing Qin Wentian to feel a sense of relief in his heart. There was hope, the power of his bloodline could counter the terrifying poison of Mu Feng. Qin Wentian's heart was filled with terror. If Mu Feng could use such a terrifying poison art as he pleased, even those on the heavenly fate rankings would have to fear him. No one could guarantee that they would be able to escape unscathed. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.